It's just a jump to the left.
So, well, here I am. Doing science.
I ask you, there's a job for intelligent men.
Well, show me one, I'll ask him.
I know. I'm working up to it.
Okay.
You are Alejandro Martinez. You are here to introduce yourself and your wonderful, beautiful work that you're doing with these amazing shapes. And so please, could you try one more time?
Yeah.
Introduce yourself to us.
Thanks a lot here. I appreciate your answering my call and my need to start sharing this information with the world and try to make a positive impact and making a group of a team of people, finding the team of people that are willing to develop this forward. And something about myself, my background. I study engineering, mechatronics engineering until almost a year to finish, and I drop out because of gut feeling that maybe if I took that road, I didn't be here. I know that I didn't arrive here because my path will be very different, and I will be like working right now like 12 hours a day in a fabric, miserable without knowing that was not my quest. So in the beginning, I was focused on developing technology, and from when I was little, I had like a vision of maybe if I focus on creating a new kind of technology, I can help the world like be better and solve a lot of problems by integrating technology in a different way with a different approach. So I focused on that, and I decided that I wanted to study mechatronics, robotics, and all that. So when I was almost finishing my career, they changed the focus of the career to from designing technology to maintaining technology in fabrics, because there's a main source of income in my region that it's Tijuana, Mexico. And it's cheap labor. That's the thing. And it helped my city to grow very big. But really, I cannot see a big change in like the basic important things like infrastructure and like everything. It's like a big chaos around here. It's a good city. I love my city. It's an international city. That's one of the biggest things. It's a global city. We have a different culture that is very different of every other part of Mexico, because we are so near the U.S. that in almost, I think, 1/3 of the city works in the U.S. every day, and they cross every day. So it's almost like a twin city, and half of my family live there, like, and not from this generation, like 2 generations ago. So they're really American.
Right.
So and thanks of that, because of that, I think the people that grew here have a global way of thinking and a new understanding, and we're not so like attached to some roots, and that has a good and a bad thing, like everything, you know.
Right.
But it gave me perspective, a lot of perspective about culture, ethnicity, and wealth, and a lot of things. So I decided to not go that road because I didn't want to be working for something that it's not my own goals, and without any real purpose and any real impact to change positively the world. So I decided to change my view to industrial design. There was another career that was just starting in the region.
Mm-hmm.
That is the same thing. I encounter the same type of problems because here we don't design, we develop, we produce.
Okay.
So when I
You make you make it better, you make it more, you make the thing, but it isn't the idea that comes from there, right?
Yeah,
Is what you're saying. Okay.
exactly. The big companies have their design departments in their own countries, and they just bring their stuff here to make it get it done.
The manufacturing.
Yeah. So it was something about the same when I got out of I finished the career. But my purpose from a lot of time before was not working for someone. I always had the mindset that I wanted to make my own business and start developing my own ideas and try to get these ideas to the people that are resonating with them. So I study.
You're gone.
Hello, sorry about
There
that.
you are. That's okay.
I got a call. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. You studied.
I started to make my own design studio.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I think almost at the same time that I started my career, I started my design studio, and I started to make a lot of things that everything about my work has to do with geometry, sacred geometry, and because I found it, I'm gonna give you a little bit of a hint here of because it's important to the context. I get in all this stuff and submerged in this information because when I was 18 years old, I found out in the work of Leonardo da Vinci that there are sacred messages, but my theory is the only one that is provable by more than 3 different ways, methods, and geometry, mathematics, and a physical way of proving it, and how he encrypted images inside images. It's a very complex scientific thing, not a science fiction or
Esoteric, like not like a ephemeral magic, which is all real. I mean, we'll get to that later, but I mean science, like physics, like the real tangible aspects.
The thing is that everything that it's out there right now, it's based on interpretation. It's like I see this here, and I think this means this. Mm-hmm. What I found is something tangible, something that everyone can agree on because it's based on geometry, numbers, and phenomena, physical phenomena, optics, and a lot of things. So I write a book about it when I was 2 years after, when I was 20. Mm-hmm. And I have it over there, and I never published it. I had a chance, actually. I have, in the time, I contacted with by friends, and I contacted a lawyer, and he was connected with a lot of people in the U.S. and with ambassador and people in high places. So he arranged like interview with a lot of important people, like the time from the media, and the thing is that when money started to show, like that it was gonna be big money, this guy wanted 80% of everything. Yeah, so I turned it down. And he burned me with all his contacts. And I'm glad that he did, because if he didn't, I didn't continue maybe studying and getting deeper in this information to finally getting to develop these things. So,
So can you tell us about those things? Okay, first of all, I just want to say, we talked a little bit when you contacted me about intuition and following your intuition and things of this nature. And like, I have a particular like personal. I hear what you're like. I have the same birthday as Leonardo da Vinci. And I was recently working on a few things that were, I mean, like recently, as in like the day before you called me, like trying to line up a few things of charts that I had made with charts that he had made. And then you contacted me and now you're talking about this. And I'm like, wow, so maybe.
Oh, and you didn't know this because I didn't tell you about this before.
No, and I don't know. I mean, like it's kind of random that of like 365 days a year, I would have the exact same birthday.
Yeah. There's no such thing as coincidence.
To also lend credence to the idea of not just synchronicity, but about wholeness and how everything is a part of the same thing, right? And it's just different versions of that thing. So like that is why those things are so cool. Can you tell us about that thing that you just were showing us?
Yeah. This after, I think, the 7th or 8th year of my research. I have 15 years doing research from that discovery of in the Leonardo da Vinci work that give me some like clues about what was important to focus on, the logics of how to analyze and dissect the universe, and I started to understand it. And from there, I took my own path, and I made extensive research about history and how geometry relates to every part of history and every big step that we had done. And from there, after like 8 years, 8 years, I found out this first one. It came out by... I started to dissect every solid and started to... I don't know why I started to do that. Like, well, I know every solid and it has to be something more inside. And I started to chop the solids like in a 3D model, right? Okay. And separate the parts and analyze like all the geometric properties and proportions and math and angles and like crazy. Like I had like all my room filled of papers and writings and like, okay, this solid and all these parts and this parts, how it relates to this one. And
in the zone.
Yeah. So I got to a point of something. I was in the same time studying physics, quantum physics, like not in the profound technical way, but in a certain more philosophical and logical and geometrical way.
Okay.
And I started to study the geometric models that were being proposed at the time. And then it got to me like, okay, and what if we are seeing it wrong? What if our perspective of things are blocked by our senses, our perception of this plane of existence, and our organic limitations, our human limitations, our perception of life and how life works, and gravity, and all these things. So I started to think, okay, maybe if I was a being living in pure space, without gravity, without sense of direction and all that, how did I perceive geometry? And well, I started to say, well, first of all, the three axis of dimension will not apply there, because we perceive the three axis of dimension based on our plane, that we are sitting in a plane, that it's the earth, and we have the plane, that XY plane, and the C, the vertical plane. Right. That's why we perceive the three spatial planes, and it's because also because it's the simplest way of understanding it. Three, the basis of everything. So yeah, well, 1, 2, 3, three space directions, and one that it's time or transformation. Okay, but well, I said, well, maybe this is not so right, because if I analyze every single solid, the spatial direction of every single solid is different. The cube has X, Y, Z, only the cube. Right. But everything else doesn't. X, Y, Z only applies to the cube. What about a pyramid, a tetrahedron, or an octahedron, or a dodecahedron? Know this because you. Yeah. Anything skewed, right? Yeah. So from there, I tried to get outside the box and think outside the box, and try to think like a non-human being. And from there, I got that type of thinking was relating to the whole universe. Like if I am the whole universe, and I don't have a point of like reference, and I start to get this type of thinking. And then I go to the other side of the scale. And what if I was a quantum string? And how did I perceive reality if I was a quantum string? And then I said, well, what if all these pieces that I am chopping off and dividing a cube in a lot of different ways, and by rules, not by my will, by geometric rules that had to do with vertices and faces and angles and certain angles and like right angles and things like that. And then I said, well, maybe all these pieces, because I had the models like in the pieces, like in my tables and all that. And I said, well, maybe if I connect one piece to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, and the end one, I connected to the first one, what would happen? And I did it with this first model. And I found out this. And it was a string. And the string vibrated. And then it got to me like, okay, maybe everything is like this. Not only the cube, like every geometry that I think that it's solid, it's not solid. Solid doesn't exist. Or maybe it does exist, but in a certain, a specific application in reality. Okay. Maybe if it is a crystal, or if it is a mineral or some, yeah, it's a solid in a certain way, in a certain perspective, because if you go inside, you're going to find out that it's only energy. But well, in that dimension that you're seeing, and maybe in an atomic or a molecule dimension, you're going to find out that it's a solid. It has a certain geometry, a solid geometry. Okay. But maybe everything in a fundamental level, every geometry is a string. And I started to do it with other geometries, and I started to find out a very complex system that never before was a map. Or when I got this, I started to look in all the literature that I can find, and books and books and books. Nothing about it, nothing. Just certain like hints that we have like everything divided, like areas and areas of study inside geometry that specify in a lot of things. One of this is topology. Mm-hmm. And topology is a very curious like science, because it studies things that study systems that bend, twist, but not break. But how can you deform something in a different way of understanding it? And one of the 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 ways that, or like a joke in the topology area, is that every topology sees a cup like a donut, like a toroid, and it has to do with their mindset that they can transform this, and if I
right,
yeah,
right,
donut.
Everything's malleable, everything's flexible,
Yeah.
but it's going to stay connected together. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I found out in the history of topology that we were getting to something, but never they can see clearly the whole picture, because when they found a clue, they started to make something so specific, so like seeing it in like inside and inside and inside, and started to generate all these equations and all that. They lose perspective of the bigger picture of what they were seeing, and they focus on a phenomenon, a little phenomenon, and they didn't know where this phenomenon was applying to. And also, in a certain way, they got outside reality and started to talk about the things that don't occur in this universe. So they go far away from what we really need to understand. And so it's not that it's not right to do that, but you need first to define where you at, and what is this reality and how it works, before you focus on something else or something more complex. So.
Well, and without the appropriate context, how do you know what that thing is? I mean, if you don't know what the whole purpose for the whole thing is, then that particular part probably doesn't make any sense. And you might assign a function to it based on the parts of it without knowing that there's extra parts, and those are what they connect to. So it's extremely important to not just look at the minutia, but to look at the whole thing. You know, we're not just looking at a tree, we're looking at a forest here. And it's all moving in the wind. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And I found out when I was passing by the history of topology, I found out that everything was this, that they were talking, all of them were talking about this in a different way, in different eras, and different parts of perspective of the same thing. One of those is Mobius, the Mobius string. And I'm gonna show you right now something here. Oh, I think I just closed the one that I was looking for. Well, we can make it. And yeah, this transformable geometry, well, the name that I give it, like a technical name, is Geometric Transformable Models. like because that's the characteristic they describe.
Mhm.
So the Mobius string, the characteristic is that it's a string that the pad connects one side of the string to the other side of the string. But the number of twists can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or infinite, and a number of twists. So this model is describing that. Why? Because the angle is changing. We have this angle going this direction, and then imagine if the way that I describe it more easily is if you have like a string of a tire that is flexible like rubber, and then you twist it 12 times, then you connect the end with the beginning, and you like somehow you connect it, you put together. What is going to happen? Like the string is gonna do this, and it's gonna collapse on itself because you have a trap energy as torsion. So you have a loop of energy trapped in a cycle. So it's a Mobius string, and that's this. So we have this side that is twisting at an angle, and from here he goes up and then down and against it. So you have
I see.
you have this angle that goes and changes the dimension. So you go from one dimension to another dimension to another dimension. One dimension. So it's describing a string that is twisting.
Right.
You see it solid, yeah, but there's another way of modeling this, and you will see like a Mobius string that is passing through these points. What points? These points, like this one and this one, then this one.
Right. So those are all
it's
equal to each other.
Yeah, it's doing like this, like
Yeah.
it's twisting. So I found out that let me see if I can find again the page, because it was very simple to see the history of topology. Well, I cannot find it, but I can describe it like this. It's another example of what I mean. This is the piano Hilbert geometry. He find out that how you can like fill the space of a square or of a cube by doing this.
Yeah, those are cool.
Yeah. But can you see how it's in 3D? It's like strings connected to strings. And it's okay.
It's continuous.
Yeah, it's continuous. And if you had another one, so they have a way to, they connect. They don't touch each other, but it's the same with this. I have two. Imagine that these are not solid. Solid is we can see it in the masculine. This is the masculine aspect of it. The feminine aspect, it will be the string that passes by the center of the model. So what he is describing there is the same that this is doing.
Oh. Oh, they interact with the like.
Yeah. Yeah. Look.
Oh my god.
It's almost
I got
magic.
chills all over my body just then.
It's almost like magic.
It
Look.
is magic.
Yeah.
But there's like this childlike fun about it at the same time, because it's like everything becomes this tactile, foldable. It's very visual, you know. Yeah. And then you're like, wow, I see that happening in the universe. I can see those things going on. I can see that a lot of like plasma and nebula and the way that gases interact, because you were talking about the universe and space. That is so crazy. It will do. So can you talk to us a little bit about the lines that are on them? Wow. And so you could probably add more than just the two together then, right? Exactly. Like you could just keep adding these. Infinite, because it's perfect. The difference with these models of these are what is it called, that now it's very popular on design, modulation design. And we have been trying to do that in industrial design for a lot of years right now. One of the reasons is because the homes are getting smaller, so you need a share that transforms to everything. No, maybe the chair transforms to a table, to another thing, and right. It can collapse, and you can hide it behind something. So those type of designs are great, but they're not perfect. They have a limit. You cannot do anything with them, and you cannot stack an infinite amount of those designs, because they have a limit, and that limit is the lack of the geometric rules that define infinite growth and infinite capacity to make clusters. So this is a proof that it is not something that I invented. This is a proof that it's something that it's on the nature of reality itself. And it's describing real complex laws in a very simple way. So if you have, I have done like clusters of almost 100 of this. And the thing is that when you start to go bigger, you start to find more geometries. It's not right. The same thing. There's more possible angles to... Yeah. Everything, every time it changes. When you're like playing with 8, when you're playing with 16, with 32, when you're going up the scale, every time you go up a scale, you're gonna find a certain amount of solutions. But when you go higher, the solutions go exponentially big, and you start to find another type of geometries that interact with those type of geometries. It's fractals. Yeah. And it's only one model. Right. Imagine every geometry is like this, and every geometry combines with every other geometry. Right. So I have one model that has almost more than 40 different harmonic positions, and I'm describing a harmonic like symmetry. This describes also how symmetry works and why it works and why geometry is based on symmetry. Because what this thing is doing is what every system in the universe is doing. Every system thrives by two things. One is looking for
energetic stability, and the other is material gaining. So it's looking to balance itself in reality and in its plane of existence, and also to do that, it needs a material part that it's obtaining the resources that it needs to do that process. So if we compare it to ourselves, we do that. We need. We're trying to balance our two energy systems, that it's mental and emotional. So to do that, we need to feed our body, and not only with food, but with other needs that we have.
And balance.
Yeah. So if we look at the same thing in atomic level, we see the same thing. Every atom wants to be or gold or precious metal, or want to evolve to noble gas, because they don't react.
I like thinking of it like that. That's a nice way of thinking of it. They all just want to be noble. They just all want to be like,
yeah,
untarnished. Get to that point where they're pure, and that's. I think that it's important to kind of personify and be empathetic with things that aren't necessarily living, because in doing that, right, it gives you the experience of being that. Like what you're talking about is like doing the thought experiments of becoming this thing with no point of reference for distance or any kind of finite spatial barriers that might limit your expansion, limit your form. And that was actually, since I'm going to ask you the question I was going to ask you, which is because you talked about form, frequency, and function, right, which are extremely important to design in when it comes to design. I mean, form, frequency, function, form and function are where it's at, and then you're combining this with the frequency, which is kind of like the space-time continuum, because you go from the measurable to the movement of the measure, measuring the movement of the measurable is what is basically transforming. So I'm gonna know, like, or talk to you about what is the benefit of a harmonic relationship between these. I mean, like, why does, because it seems like these forms that you're making fit into the function of everything, and that they're malleable according to the frequency and exponential frequency of the numbers used. So the more frequently you use this number, you get an exponential possibilities of more shapes, more forms, and it's just growing.
Yes.
So how so because these are the words that you've used with these and to associate with these. So how does that that, I guess, what is the benefit of the harmonious relationship between them for your work, for what these mean to everything?
Yeah, I got to this theory. I called it the F theory, because the three words have the F on the beginning, and it has to do with I realized something. Every system is composed of two things: energy and matter. So from there, we can see that a little part of the system, like in an atom, the 1% is matter, and the 99% is energy. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
It's 99% energy.
Yeah, let me just. Okay, yeah, I can see you again. Okay, so we can see there the balance of importance. Like, well, matter is not so big of a deal if it's the 1%, so energy has to be a little bit more important, right? And then I started to see something when I find out these things. I noticed that, well, I can see a form like a cube right now. But, well, if I see the feminine aspect of it, it's a string of energy. So inside this, it shapes like a form. There's a string of energy that when you see it like a string of energy, you cannot identify that it's a cube. With a lot of effort, you can do it because you start to see the angles and certain points because it's a cube. But you're gonna see a string that is doing this. It goes up, down, up, down, up, down, up, and comes back to the same point. And it has to do with something very important, compression. Because it's looking for equilibrium. So if I cut here, this side is the same as this side. If I cut in this angle, this side is the same in this side. And every way I want to cut it, we can find two halves that are gonna be equal and opposite. That's the reason that the cube is so important in this string in particular, because it's describing the best way the string can compress itself to establish equilibrium and to maintain itself. That is all that it wants. Because if I want to transform this shape, the only thing that I can do is this movement, this movement, this movement, and this movement. It's the starting movement. It only has 4 movements to transform it. But what about the string in this shape?
Yeah.
It's chaos. It's unstable. And if I have like another shape running around and hits it,
Right.
gonna destabilize it and it doesn't have like, if we understand that this is conscious and it wants to evolve and transform and be stable and be productive, wanna interact with the surrounding or with the environment in a harmonious way, in an intelligent way, like in its own way of understanding intelligence. But it wants to interact in a correct way. So it finds the correct state of vibration and form, two sides of the same coin. This is the thing, vibration and form, these models are describing that they are the same thing. Every time that you change vibration, the form changes.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you change vibration, the form changes. So why it changes, how it changes? It changes because of the environment. If I have this shape, and certainly this shape arrives here, this shape is gonna transform to a shape that resonates with this one. So if I have this and this, it cannot connect, not in a harmonious way, because this is frequency, and if we understand that this is electromagnetic frequency, it has magnetism and electricity. When it interacts with another string, it's gonna attract or repel.
Right.
So if the purpose of geometry and these systems is to balance, to find equilibrium, so they're gonna transform to a way that they can relate and connect. And it's like a heart.
Wow.
So,
And it's 2 chambers that are spiraled together, just
yeah,
like the heart.
same faces connect. Because from this state, the polarity of these 2 strings is gonna attract, and it's gonna connect. And this is one of the ways that they can connect, but they also can connect like this or like this, or other ways like this. But it has to do with the environment, because maybe they can connect with in this way because there are other pieces around them that are making the environment vibrate in a certain way, that this is the most stable way that they can be in. So it's a balance between the singular thing and the multiplicity or the environment, and how one thing connects to the whole. And it's the same with every system. So we have 7 systems embedded in the universe: atom, molecule, cellular, organic, planetary, solar, and galactic. So we have 7 systems. And this is very important because, first of all, from where, or what is determining this? I found out that it's based on the golden ratio or the golden spiral. And from one, or what we consider the octaves in music. So we have 7 notes, and the 8th note is a scale up or down. So the universe behaves in the same way, but why? It's a very easy way to explain it. I found out something. Everything has to do with the cycle. So a cycle in 2D is a circle, right? But a cycle in time,
Right.
is a spiral. This point and this point, that didn't move. I only move it forward, not up, not down. It's a thing of perspective. Optics can define why the spiral is a spiral. It's because when I move in time, this cycle, in a certain point, you're gonna find that it's a spiral. So it's describing a cycle in time. The golden mean describes a cycle in time. So that cycle in time has 7 phases, 7 steps to go from one point to the next point, from the beginning to the end. And it's describing, but where does it come from? Okay, golden ratio is very important, and it's everywhere, and it's defining every system and the proportion and the relationship of every system with everything else. Okay, but the reason that it exists is because it's described in the way energy is floating in the toroid, in the geometry of a donut shape. So every system is an electromagnetic system. So these systems are toroids of energy, these 7 systems of structural systems, dimensional structural systems. And the only thing that they have in common, the most important thing, is that they all are manifestations of the toroid. And why is this important? Because toroids have one very interesting thing. They have a singularity. The singularity is what we can define as consciousness. It's something that it's in the center of everything. But the thing is that, okay, an atom has a center. My organic body has a center. The earth has a center, and this center is a infinite fractal point of compression. So how can I? So there are infinite points of compression. There are infinite consciousness, different consciousness. I realized something. It's here where it connects to the holographic theory of the universe, because it's a hologram. We have the moment previous to the Big Bang. At that point, it's still there. It hasn't moved, never. The only thing that moved was everything inside it that looks that it's outside it. So from that point, it starts to make a lot of little points that reorganize and make bigger points, bigger toroids. But the thing is that they all are connected to the same non-temporal point, like connection in real time, like internet of the universe.
Right.
So it's really omnipresence. It has control in real time of every part of the whole system, and knows everything in real time. So for me, that's consciousness. It's not something that you that has nothing to do with thinking or not thinking. It has to do with presence and the interaction of going from that point outwards, gathering information, interaction, knowledge, then going back inwards, generating a perception of a point, and knowing that this point is not the other points from that perspective. Not that it doesn't mean that it's the same point, but it's a virtuality. It's like a hologram. It's like my hand. Where's my hand? Like, it can be here, but when I do this, where's my hand?
Right.
Our perception cannot define where the hand is, because the hand is moving faster than my eye can define a specific point.
Like the rubber pencil trick. I don't think I can do it, but it's like, the rubber pencil trick where you're like, what? Because exactly, there's a skip in there, in the processing somewhere. Like you're getting the images, like screenshots of the images, and then your brain makes them a fluid motion. It like fills in all those gaps that are missing, but you're not actually seeing that. You're seeing it more of choppy and upside down, as far as I understand. And then your magic brain and all of its power turns that into like a comprehensive, fluid, moving visual that's going on. And I think it's really interesting what you're talking about, like first of all, like the expansion of sentience, right? Because that's what it is, and each level of consciousness is created with each level of matter or each level of sentience as that goes up. And then there's the sacred spiral that at some point becomes a larger version of itself. So it takes up that number to get to this point, and that's why they keep going. And so when we do that, when we get to that next point, there is that greater consciousness, and it can see it, like remembers where it's been, because part of it is still there.
Yeah.
Right. It's stretched like this. So, and I think that's really, it's interesting. I actually made a image not too long ago of like I took a chain link fence, an image of a chain link fence, and then turned it into a cone, but like visualizing it down the stream of the cone like this, and then I put a city in the bottom of it. It was like a sunset city, and then so like a light like winds up reflecting on the chain link. It's all digi, you know what I'm saying? It's just digital like imaging, but it turns into that. It turns into that elongation and foreshortening and stretch and pull, and then the light from the end, it still exists at every marker. So you're getting less brightness from the light, but you're getting more detail as it's coming closer to you. So this is how that's how I'm registering what you're talking about. Like the Big Bang part still exists, a lot of people like that I talk to, they get upset. They're like, there was no Big Bang. And it's like, well, okay, but what is that then? You know, what happened that? How do we see that? And I think that part of it is that it's so primal and it's so deep in us that we can't remember to see it, even though it's a part of us. And what you're showing, what you're illustrating in these things is, no matter how far away it goes or how much it comes back, the tie is never broken. It goes through all of these things. And what's interesting about those things too, if you don't mind saying, is like the increase of surface area, okay? Because you're going from a square, which is a cube, so square on each side, and then you open it up. But as you're opening it up, you're also exponentially increasing the surface area of what is available. And then it compresses all back down into the surface that you see. And so that's a really interesting concept, especially when you think about lensing and you think about how far something actually is away and what things are made of. And because I guess it is like steps of the I don't know, like just the deeper knowing, like how much context do you have behind this conversation? Because if you have a lot of context behind this conversation coming at it, you're going to get a lot out of what you're describing. You're going to be like, oh my God. But if it's surface to you, this conversation might cause you to go back and look and suddenly dismantle it and see all of those layers that were inside of it and all that extra surface that exists.
I'm going to show you something this is going to blow your mind, because, okay, maybe we think of things like outside of us, like, okay, well, I have something that it's applied to everything and is defined. Okay, but what about if I tell you that this is like the opposite of your body? This is like if we think about in industrial design, like in a mold, to design a part. Okay, I'm the model. This is the mold. And not only this, every geometry that exists is the mold of the human body. And not only the human body, like every single organism that exists. And in a different way, in a different arrangement and proportion, but I'm going to show you why. Why can we interact with this? This is one of the biggest questions. How and why? What it has to do with anthropometrics, anthropometria. It's the science that study the proportion and dimension of the body, and ergonomics, the way that we relate to objects. Mm-hmm. So I dimension this cube, the side of this cube, to the length of a palm.
Okay.
That it's almost in every person 4 inches, but it varies from 3.5 to 4.5. But almost everyone is in the 4 inches. But well, I dimension this in the palm, and the palm is the only part of the body besides the head that it's round. That's very important because it's defining a unit of scale and proportion in the body. So when I did that, every intersection and every dimension of this cube, now it's related to every part of my body. So what happens if I put the thumb here and I go here, and this is the what's it called, the joint of the finger, and if I go this side and like this, and then I go this, look, is the form of the fingers.
Yeah.
If I open this, it's two two triangles. Mm-hmm. If I put my thumb here in the corner, it's exactly one hand. and it's the shape of the hand,
Wow.
the angle of the fingers. If I put it in this position, the center of the squares is the center of my eyes. If I put it in this position, is one face.
Wow.
If I put it in this position, when I open it and arrange this angle to be the same, flat, we have 3 corners in the back. 1, 2, 3. Okay. This is gonna be a little bit of nakedness, but
Sorry.
look at this. This goes here, and this goes here.
Wow.
It's exactly the 3 points.
It breaks down into the proportions exactly for specifically to the palm of your hand, so that would be your proportion. So I would imagine then if you had it strung out, it would be your tip to tip, fingertips, or from head to toe. You could.
Look, if I grab it here like this in the first angle, and I put it here, look how it shapes in my movement.
Wow, it like even bends with you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty incredible.
It's very complex. It's throwing out information about my body, not only physically but energetically. Why? Because I found out like extra physical points of reference, like this one. Like if I put this position that I just show you, okay, it's showing a plane that it goes from the genitals to this part, and it's opening here like this, right? Look when I am like this, okay. And if I put it in this position and put it in the where is the third eye and the nose, look, the tip of the nose, the third eye, and there's this point. So this point is aligned with this one. Yeah, this position and the plane that it's describing that it's opening from the genitals to this point, the same one that it's the point that is getting here. So it's telling you that in this part, it's something here. It's showing you information
That there's
outside
an important.
It's an important point. Something is here energetically. There's a point of reference in this part of in front of your face, like a focal point. I think it's like a lens. You have a lens and you have a focal point. I think we have a focal point at this distance. And this model is describing it and it's showing you where it is. Not only this point, I found out points in different parts of like,
Yes.
look, if I rotate the from my, what is it called? We call it
Belly button?
Yeah, the belly button. Okay. If I rotate it from here, look, I put it, okay, like this. I start from here. No, it's like this. Okay. I start from here. This corner is in my belly button.
Okay.
Then when I do this, this is the opening of the chest. The two, look.
Yeah, right at your rib cage.
Look. And it's the angle. It's the same angle. These faces have the same angle of this part. It fits perfectly. And if I go around, look.
Wow.
And then look, it goes all around to this point.
Right at the your crown. What it's doing is it's addressing all your chakras.
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
touching all of those energy centers, and they're the same space apart. And then I guess what it's doing, because I was trying to, I wanted to watch what you were doing, but at the same time I wanted to show you this is Tuning the Human Biofield by Eileen McCusick. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but I wanted to show because she has illustrations in here
of those specific chakra points, and there's like a biofield around your body that she will tune with tuning forks, because it's all frequency. And so different layers of that energetic field are a certain distance from you. And I think that I think it varies on a lot of different things. I mean, she's something else. Check her book out if you're if you're interested in that. But what you're talking about, in a sense of an atom, and saying that the 1% of it, say, is matter, and the 99% of it is energy. Arbitrary numbers, throw them out there. But if that's true, then you are 1% of your 100%.
Exactly. Yeah. This is only the little part of my body. So what is outside here? And we don't understand. We have very, very, very small literature about it, and most of it is from the ancient world, and we don't understand that information. We don't know how to use it. All the people that know died a lot of time ago, so we have some information, but we don't know how to apply it, how to really get all the information out. And I think it has to do with space-time. It has to do with how space-time is blocking in a certain parts of history the information that can be acknowledged, can be understood and manifested. And that's why in certain points we go down again to barbaric and ignorance. Evolution is not a straight line. Evolution is vibration. It goes up and down, up and down. You can go up and down, up, or up and down, down. Mm-hmm. So it
but
goes
there's always
both
undulation, and there's always some peak and some trough, because it's not like we're just steadily moving straight up like this, and it wouldn't work that way anyway, because of the rhythmic vibratory nature of the universe. It breathes, it expands and contracts. So, and like you were talking about the wavelength, the feminine wavelength that would be equal on the cube, because the trough and the peak are equidistant throughout the square, where they change as your Mobius string elongates. The frequency of that energy is going to change shape as well, right, as it goes through. Yeah. But it would still be the physical would still be 1% of that energy field.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this also proves that the volume always stays the same. If I have a certain volume here, it's the same here and in any position that I have. What is changing is its morphology, its vibration, and its surface area. Everything else stays the same, so we can consider that it's the same thing, but like mutating from one state to another state. Mm-hmm. And so I'm gonna show you something that is the first time that I share it with anyone. Oh, no. I have only published this one. Why? Because I have a lot of years with this information, but for some reason my intuition told me that it was not time to get it out. I think right now we are at the moment, like a critical moment, that this information has to start to spread. And I know I can see the bigger picture of where this is gonna get us. So this one that I'm gonna show you is the octahedron version of the octahedron in the quantum of octahedron. You have it here.
That's awesome.
That thing is sweet.
But look, okay, if I have a cube, imagine that I have the octahedron in this position, that it's another geometry. This is the other, one of the other important things. What is this? What is the name of this? Some of this I have found that it has a name, and somebody just found it and named it, but they don't understand how or where it goes. This is the only way of understanding geometry and how it really connects every piece to everything else, and how every area of property of geometry connects to in the real model. Like, okay, angles, like right angles, and these are all right angles. They all have a 90-degree angle. This is one of the characteristics. The same with this one. This is one of the reasons that the importance of the right angle. But look, if I have a cube and I have this connects here. And if I have another of this connects here and here and here. And we will get another geometric form, another geometric solid that we can identify like a harmonious form or an equilibrium, because is symmetrical. It's gonna be symmetrical, but it's gonna have faces, triangular faces in this shape.
Right.
Like pyramids. Like every face has four pyramids that connects with one square face. So we're gonna have 48 pyramids connected in like a geodesic. So this is another shape. This is another new form, or maybe it's not new. I know that a lot of people had stumbled with this shape, but not in this way. Not in.
No, I've not seen it. I've seen. I mean, octahedrons are important, and they're like the one of the I don't say more basic building blocks, because you have like the Platonic forms, but they there is a solidity about them that and I don't know how to explain it, but what you're doing and what I like what you're doing is because a lot of times when we do see forms of any kind, they are often drawings or they are computer generated. And so it removes it from the tangibility. And what you've got is actual, real, solid things that are like playful that you can interact with on the human level. And that's where it starts to, like as an artist, because that's so important to have this tactile, like, oh, I can see my picture on the computer, but I can't feel it. I can't touch it. And I can't like really look at it. I can't read the story. I have to be able to write on the page, because just me as a person, I have to be able to tactile, like absorb that sense through that feeling sense. And what is it?
And the proportion, like, look, my hand, like, it can grab it, but also how it relates to the possibilities, the angular possibilities of my, like, look.
It's like, because it's comfortable for you because it's in proportion to you.
Yeah. I can do things with my hands. And there's a thing with, like martial arts, like, okay, where those movements come from? Whoa, they come from this. They come from this understanding of how proportion outside the body come in the relationship of our extremities.
Wow. You're totally like, not to use the word manipulating, but you're manipulating the chi there. When you're doing that, you're taking that energy that is that form, and you're moving it, and that's where the different
imagine that we are energy, We're 99% energy. So how can I bend my energy in a right way so it brings me more energy, positive or whatever I want, because energy is as it goes run both ways, right? But I can consciously manipulate my space so my thoughts and my emotions do what I want to do with them, and get transformed by the same energy by bending my own energy in the right way.
Right.
That's what this is. But I think that the universe reached a point, or we are in a space-time so contracted and so highly dense that things are getting so simple that this appeared. This got manifested because, okay, well, look, let's go like some hundreds of years back. We're gonna see that people that are related to this were making very complex things. For some exceptions in certain points of history, like when philosophy was generated, and that was one of the biggest and most productive points of geometric development. And they were using simplicity. They were using how we can understand that and this and extrapolate it to the reality of the world, and how can I understand by my mind and by this basis the existence. And they did a great job, because without proving it, without having the ability to prove anything, they were right. They were very right about a lot of things. Like Plato said that every fundamental part of reality or element was one of the Platonic solids, and it was right. Like if we study the elements of the periodic table and the microscope, we're gonna find out they are or Archimedean or Platonic solids. So they were right. But why? Because logic of the relationship with things, the things that are out here, you can extrapolate it, those laws, to everything else. They understood that. So now reality is facing us with this. And what is the purpose of this? This is the purpose to impact a new generation of people, of little people. Because if I have done the experiment, I have been using this to treat for therapy with autism.
Perfect.
With very good results.
I'm sure. That's the perfect thing. Oh wow. Okay. And they're receptive to it.
Yeah, because their minds work different. They are more like logical and more abstract and more like
that.
rigid in their way of thinking. They don't understand like logical things that we do, like socializing or saying something. They like we lie a lot to fit in society, right? To okay, maybe I don't like what you're doing, but I'm gonna say that you're okay, and I love your job, I love your work. When inside I say I don't like your work, but I have to do it because I need to socialize, right?
Right.
They don't have that. They don't have those filters. They don't have filters. If they don't like you, they don't like you. If they say your work is not great, they're gonna say it to your face, and they don't understand why people don't do that. And that's perfect, because they are real, but then makes their life very difficult in society. So these systems help them understand why human relationships are important, like in a systemic way. Okay, I have this is me, this is you. If I feel sad and you're feeling happy, we can relate in this way. But if you're feeling sad and I am excited, I'm excited, then we cannot interact in this way. You have to relax, and then we connect in this way. This is one of the examples, but
then they can see it. They can turn themselves into that shape and then become that. They can fit, like into the emotional situation better.
Yeah, we have like
beautiful.
It's a way to relate, like something that they don't understand with something that they can understand. And so from this perspective, they can understand what are you talking about. Also, it's like imagination machine.
It is. The whole time you've been playing with it, I was thinking, because I mean, as like a learning product, that thing is.
Look,
infinite fun. I mean, like Lego's Goodbye, like those things.
yeah, exactly. This is not the new Legos. This is a new Legos.
You could totally build the entire universe, and it doesn't have to be. It's not restricted to these squares.
It doesn't have 90 degrees, because 90 degrees, we are stuck in boxes.
Right.
For the last 200 years, we have been stuck in boxes.
Well, that's why that appeared then, right? You said like that level of consciousness, and that it was so simplified, and that's why this appeared. And it's because like this is the exterior surface that we see, this labeling that we see, this is the life that we feel we must fit in and sit in, right? And that thing is here to be like, hey, guess what's inside? Whoosh. You know what I mean? It's all this, and it because there is it is time for people to open up a little bit, and when you wanted this information back in the day, you would have to find the book. You'd have to, I mean, even in our like recent past, like go to the library, get the book, do the thing, you know what I mean? But before the internet, before libraries, before any of that, it was like some person guarding a book that had been passed on. It was handwritten, and it had been like, okay, Alejandro, this is for you now, and then it was this precious thing, because any misplaced candle could ruin all of history.
Yeah.
All right. So now,
and
these secrets had to be guarded.
Has a lot of things. A lot of times, it happened.
A lot. Weird. I mean, the Library of Alexandria. I mean, like the entirety of human history. And I think that I was just talking to my mom about this. It's like if the internet went down, it would be the equivalent of that, because all of the information that we can. I mean, right now you're in Tijuana, I'm in Detroit. We're having a conversation in real time. And that wouldn't be possible without this tech that we have. And I wouldn't be able to do the research that I do, and you wouldn't be able to do the research or find the things or all the availability that's right at your fingertips via this web. And that's what everything really is like these strings of material, these strings of consciousness, these strings of everything, and it's all woven together. And it's like a torrid inside a torrid inside a torrid, and then they're like fractals. So I'm thinking like a Mandelbrot, just a Mandelbrot torrid that's just like gone everywhere, and that's what it's become, right? But one point is actually it's just the same string, just doing this, and we're able to recognize that now. We have to recognize that now as humanity. Like if we want to get to the next step, if we want to get out of our box, right, and evolve, because that's what we do. We might do it like this, but we do evolve eventually. We're going to have to accept these truths that we've maybe not seen or maybe not understood, or like you said, like divvy it up in vivisections into little bitty parts where the hand doesn't know what the foot's doing, and we've never even heard of an eyeball before, but that's how this whole system is getting all its information and how it's carrying out all of its activities. So without understanding this wholeness, without taking a look at these parts and how the puzzle pieces intersect, because without looking at all of that, we're not going to understand the whole. And I think part of the issue too is because there is this like solid field, parabolic, hyperbolic, like how does all of this exist?
Yeah.
And that's why I love that pencil, because it's like, yes, this is part of it, and things sometimes are so densely trapped that they become solid. But is water still water when it's steam and an ice cube, and when it's flowing through, and it can be ionized? You know what I'm saying? So, and it's all basically the same thing. The hydrogen that eventually became gold, it eventually turned itself into this solid metal. Hmm?
Yeah, it evolved.
Yeah,
By
and we
a
wouldn't be
lot
able to
of
do
time,
that.
and yeah,
We're in this point of evolution because we have access to all of this information at our fingertips, and you can get excited about something and say, "Oh, I need to know the next thing," and look it up, and then move on with your project. You don't have to wait for, you know what I mean, like the 30-day journey to 60 miles away.
Yeah.
To get something from a bird. You know, it's like we actually can do this. And so I think that's why it's super important to connect, to communicate, to put the things out there, and to also like experiment with them. But also in that same vein, I'd say that it's also important to keep with the respect for yourself and your work, and to wait until you feel it's the right time for it to come out. Because if you're telling somebody something before they're ready to hear it, you're wasting your breath. They won't have any idea. You know what I mean? But if you wait too long, then they'll be like, why didn't you tell me that sooner?
yeah, exactly.
So there is this.
It happened to me. Like when I started to find out this. Well, when I found out the other thing, the work of Leonardo da Vinci, and I tried to get it out, reality slapped me in the face. Like, hey, what are you? There was not the purpose. Don't do that. And it's not. I give you that because you needed that for a reason, not to get it out. That was not the reason in the moment. I think right now it is. I think right now I'm actually looking for a way to publish it. I have the book, and it's very, very dense and important that right now it goes out, because of certain things that I have been seeing on the things that are happening right now. That this is gonna help it's gonna help a lot to digest things that are gonna come out in this, like the next months or year, in relationship to religion and other things. So this information is gonna ease out like the pain for a lot of people to understand that there's a deeper meaning in all this, and there's a lot of different perspectives of things, and it's gonna help like ease out the friction of letting go of things that we're attached to, because it helps us not bother ourselves with the responsibility taking care of ourselves and our consciousness, our energy, and our divinity.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
we have what we have done is, well, let me live a simple life with simple things and simple pleasures, and you take care of my divinity. You take care of this. I don't want to be responsible of this. Right. It's easier for me. And when you know the truth, it comes with a big package of responsibility, and it's not so easy. It's not so easy. You have to, the things that you have to pass, or the things that the universe is going to throw at you, are going to be 10, 20 times, 30 times harder.
Right.
than just going every day to working at the fabric and doing your job, coming back to your home and your kids. And yeah, it's a simple life. It's easier that way. But when you woke up and you start to find out all these things and grab the consciousness that you have and start to address it the right way, it gives you one, it gives you a purpose. Secondly, it gives you peace. Give you peace because you found out that there's a reason that everything is happening. Everything is perfect. Everything. That's one of the things that I learned, that everything is perfect. There's nothing wrong with reality. The things that we see wrong are based on our lack of knowledge, the lack of understanding of why and how the universe works. And when you start to check all those boxes of information that you need to understand, then it starts to clarify the perspective of why things are happening and why good and bad exist and where are we positioned in the space-time. And also, what is space-time? There's one of the things that I wanted to talk about, what is consciousness, what is defining consciousness, and what geometry is modeling. Like, geometry is modeling consciousness. Consciousness manifests in vibration and form, energy and matter. So geometry is not consciousness. Geometry is modeling consciousness. Consciousness is the ether or the essence of the universe, the point, the static point. In physics, a particle that has no movement, its energy is infinite. And the equations are there, but physicists haven't found out where exactly is this phenomenon occurring. This phenomenon occurring in the center of the whole universe, in the point before the Big Bang. This is the only place that doesn't move, and in the center of every toroid. This is the only place in the event horizon, and so that's one thing. But the other thing we talk about, what is getting consciousness, is the structure of space-time. But what is space-time? This another thing that I have been working on for a lot of time, and I think I have understand what really is. Even now, in videos of the NASA, explaining what is space-time, and they still have the same a model of a big fabric, and they put a ball, and that ball shapes the fabric and curves it, and they say, well, this ball is the earth, the sun, and this other ball is the earth, and look, the big ball shapes the fabric and it curves the space-time, and this is space-time. What is space-time? It's the fabric. The fabric is space-time. False. Totally false. What I have found out working with this is this is space-time. You are space-time. Any atom is space-time. Every cell is space-time. There's no theater where something is happening. You are the theater. You are manifesting space-time. A lot of my work has to do with perspective and philosophy. Most of all, philosophy. Maybe we don't lack of information. Maybe we're analyzing it wrong. Maybe I think we have all the information that we need to understand everything, but we're seeing it the wrong way. I think this is this, but no, this is different. Well, we have the information, but we are not seeing it in the right perspective. or the whole sum of perspectives, I think.
That yes, because when you're, I think you're absolutely correct. I think that there's a lot of information and little analysis that actually gets anywhere, right? We're like running and we're not going anywhere, and it's because we're not moving. So if you have this point and you're looking at it from over here and I'm looking at it from over here, well, there's like the infinite number of vectors going all the way around, and each one of those is going to be looking at that same point differently, and the further away from it they get, even different still that point looks, even though nothing actually changes about the point. The point is the same no matter what. The only difference is the perception of it, how it's perceived. And so that's
making a parenthesis of that information. What is a point, a circle, a sphere, and a toroid? They're the same thing. The only thing that changes is perspective. It's like if you see from far, far away, you see the earth is a point. You get near the point, you see a circle. You get near the circle, you see a sphere. You get near the sphere, you can feel that field of energy, that toroid, that field of energy. So
right.
It's the same thing. The only thing is perspective, and it's the same thing with everything. And there's not one of the other things that I found out is that we have a linear, simple way of 1 equals 1. One question equals one answer. Everything has or is right or is wrong, or is this or is that. False. Every action has a multidimensional reaction. Everything has a multifunctional reaction. I have a function to my cells of my body, or to cell number 1,000 and 1 million and something in the tip of my finger, and he's called Juanito. And and I have a responsibility to Juanito, and maybe he's dying today, you know. I don't know, but I have a purpose, a multifunctional purpose, for my family, for my friends, for the earth, for the sun, for the galaxy far, far away. So what is the purpose of something? It's multifunctional, and it's the same. It applies to the same thing to everything, and not only to what is my function of, to what it's. Every question, every way to address something is understanding that everything is connected to everything, and it has maybe even. I started to analyze a lot of different things, and I started to stumble upon contradictions that are right in the same time. Like, okay, this is producing this and this and this and this, but in this perspective is right, and this perspective is wrong, and the two are correct at the same time. Mm-hmm. How it could be is because the sum of the parts complete the whole, and the whole always is correct. So that's the way to address questions that why does suffering occur in the world? Why are people dying in wars or torture or human trafficking, and all those things that are very bad and wrong in my perspective of how I perceive reality. Mm-hmm. But they're not wrong. They're there because the experience has to be lived. The world has, the universe has to know how high is high, how low is low. So it has the knowledge to design the next cycle, to understand what it's standing on and understanding what it's capable of. This is the only way. Mm-hmm. So cycles are determined, and there's the reason of fluctuation. If we were always connected to the source and the higher point of illumination constantly, what it will be our purpose? Nothing. Because there's the purpose of falling again away from a connection or harmony or illumination and going down the scale to darkness, like medieval darkness, and then finding a new way back to the source. That new way is new knowledge. It's a new knowledge that the universe didn't have before. And this is the reason that we are here. There's the reason that the universe keeps on going and has to fluctuate from day to night, night to day. Because if that process didn't exist, the universe didn't have a reason to keep going forward. And everything works by polarity. So I'm gonna go for my chart. If everything works by polarity, and I was telling you about the example of where's my hand? Like, imagine that this is the universe, and the universe is a point that is here. How that point can know what it is? How that point can know where it is? What are its capabilities? It cannot know. So he decided to vibrate. By vibrating, he created a virtual part of itself in a distant way. We call that antimatter universe. And in that antimatter universe, or the other pole of the toroid of the universe, that is the same thing, is the same universe. That way, he found a way to generate a conversation with itself, like somebody throwing a ball and then running to the other position and catching it, and then throwing it back. It's so fast that we don't know where it is. We don't know where is the position of. In the same way, the analogy is our work in the universe, like sapiens and most of all organic life is the center of the structural system. But our purpose here is to be the ones that answer the questions and point out other questions back to the source. There's a reason it needs somebody to talk to.
Definitely, yeah. And some, entropy to grow, right?
Yeah.
That has to occur. There has to be, because like even when we eat food, something grew from a seed. Like, okay, I'm looking at my apple tree and it's got little apples. So like an apple, it's a seed, and then it becomes a tree, and then that tree makes flowers, and then those flowers make fruit, and then I eat it, and now that fruit is dead because I ate it. Or we break down as mammalian animals, and we're buried in the soil, and fungi eat us and turn us into food.
Sorry.
No, you're okay. But without that digestive process, right? With like tearing down that apple to its bitter little pieces, and then turning them into little pieces of ourselves, like that's what's happening when we eat food. You're breaking it down, and that's why they say you are what you eat, And then we break down into something that's fertilizing the soil, something that fertilizes, our bodies or animal bodies or whatever, or our waste. It is reused to create new life. So there's that constant death and rebirth process.
Is there some higher force at work here? I mean, are we asking too much of life?
These are my grapevines. My lemon balm. But and
I have a forest of cactus. Look.
Do you? Oh my God, you do.
They're huge. Like
they're bigger than the building.
Yeah, like trees. No, and goes like two stories up.
Oh my God. I had a cactus for like 10 years maybe when I lived out west, and we used to take it because I'd move, and
it was about 6.5 feet tall, and I would wrap it in a blanket and put it in the front seat of the car, like laid back like this to get it from, because I moved quite a few times, but eventually I just gave it to a friend because there was no way that it was, but it's amazing how big it grew in a pot like this big. They'll just go nuts. So your main purpose right now for releasing this information, for finding an outlet for it, like what is it that, because you talked to me about a reason that you were ready to do this, ready to look for individuals, like what are you, do you want to share some of what your main goal here is with this?
Yeah, and my goal is to create a multidisciplinary group of study and development, so this technology can solidify as something that can be applied to as a new way of understanding science, a new way of filtering and organizing every scientific and non-scientific knowledge. One of the other things is that this talks about everything, not only science. This involves every aspect of existence. So it's nothing. It's in everything. It's the only constant that is in everything that you can think about, and for that reason, I think that I have right now the a method to, for the first time, organize information in the right way, because we have sciences, right? But those sciences are like the process of truncation. Look, I'm going to show you how we are so wrong with some things. This is the graph of the process of truncation. How do we go from one geometry to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, to the next one? Okay. So we have the platonic solids, but they don't have relationship. They are crossed with a line, but they don't have relationship. The line only describes how sides are augmenting.
Increasing, right.
Yeah. So, but how do you turn a tetrahedron into a hexahedron or an octahedron? And there's no relationship. They cannot find that. So I found out that the quantum tetrahedron, if you have 5 in a certain position, they can combine and create a dodecahedron. There's new knowledge that's never been discovered. And I found out that the tetrahedron is related to the hexahedron or the cube in this model. Look.
But you had to break it down into so many smaller shapes in order for it to, like fractions of itself, in order to rebuild itself out of those shapes.
Yeah.
So instead of going larger, where you were using the shapes to build them on top of each other, you broke them down into their interior shapes. Like you were talking about, like because when you were talking about the Da Vinci Man and how every point is within us, or we are within every point. Every point kind of hits us, like we're it's kind of almost like a reversal of positive and negative space.
Yeah.
Happening right here. And so you're connecting things from the inside, I guess.
Yeah, and also for in the past we are seeing things as division and what is the opposite of sum? The word
Of sum,
like adding and subtracting.
Yeah.
So we divide and subtract. That's the logic that we had for a lot of time. And I'm pointing out that the reality doesn't do that. The reality adds and multiplies. And this is showing this.
Remainder. Sorry. So so it's sorry. I'm glad it came to me before I was out, and I was like, oh yeah, later. But reality wants things to make more.
Yeah. And
so even in
organized by groups of more, not dividing something. Imagine that the only apparent division that it had, that the universe created, was the Big Bang. But it's also a wrong perspective of things, because the Big Bang didn't explode. The Big Bang was a fluctuation of information by a point that expanded, but it didn't drop out galaxies and suns and planets. What came out from there? Quantum strings.
right.
So it didn't divide. It didn't divide. It only expand through that point quantum strings. And from quantum strings, it started to generate bigger and bigger and bigger groups of geometries that manifested in this. And then from there, it didn't, because you can say, well, organic and all this life came from the division of the earth. False. Or planets came from that division of the solar system. False. Because the solar system formed, and then the other things formed from the little things, not from something big that divided itself, and from the sun came the planet. No, it didn't happen like that. And in the same, in the organic level, we form from the little things, from the quantum level to the molecular, cellular, and then cellulars can multicellular organisms, but it come again from the little part of reality, from the quantum level, all the way up organic level. So it's not dividing anything. Reality is not dividing or subtracting anything. It's adding and multiplying, and we can see it like this, like here. Like, look, this. I have different models of cubes. This is another one. This is one of the complex ones. This has 48 pieces.
Within the cube.
Yeah, it's another version of the cube. This is why
it's a tighter Mobius twist to give it more sides.
Look, I have with tapes because it's very difficult to put it together.
Oh no, you know. Is it gonna? Like, I want to tell you don't do it, but at the same time, I really want you to show it.
And this one is very complex. I think our evolution reached a certain point to manipulate certain strings. Not all of them, because maybe an octopus can do it. Maybe the octopus has evolved to manipulate a lot of more transformables than we are.
But you also make me think about tension. You ever see the tension table trick where they take the strings, turn them, and then it creates enough. So those strings would create the illusion of solid, say, because there's enough tension there to hold space, to create that resistance of solid without any type of electromagnetism, without any type of force except tension, right?
It's tensegrity, and it's the way of materials and tension and compression, and how they both are working like the same thing. Look, I colored like different, but look this.
Wow. See, look at the surface area on that.
Yeah. Look, we can compare it. Like, it's the same thing, but it's not the same thing.
No.
even in the material, like if you weight this, this is heavier, like 5 times heavier, because it needs more material to get done the same volume. It's the same volume. It has more surface, exactly. And so, and the possibilities are a lot more complex, like so complex that I cannot even like transform it in a symmetrical way.
Right.
Because
it looks like chaos, but it's totally ordered.
Yeah, but it has like a mind of its own. Like I can control this because the nuts are like and the nodal points are few, like 12 or something like that. Look, so I can do it symmetrically. Look, it reacts symmetrically.
But once there's too many points, the symmetry changes because it wants to be symmetrical at different places. So it's not congruent to itself in that sense at that point.
Yeah, and I don't have so many hands and fingers to control the movement.
Right.
So
well, to anchor all those points to move them in that type of fluid way, because when you manipulate the other one, you're using both of your hands at the same time to turn those points. But these points are not touched. Just these points are touched. So the bottom ones are kind of like a repercussion of that wave. It's like the ripple hit the shore at your hands, but it can keep going with the other.
And exactly, and I have found a lot of symmetrical positions with this string, very beautiful and very complex, but they are very difficult to find because it's very difficult to manipulate. And I concluded that maybe a being on another planet in our solar in our galaxy has 8 hands and 10 fingers in each hand, and he can control this in a way that I control the other one,
Right.
So it made me like think a lot of, okay, I can, we as humans can physically interact with certain strings, quantum strings. Okay. And what about every other string that we cannot? It has to be another being that has evolved to control them and interact with them. That means that we are making a job different. Our purpose and our job to understand certain principles, like in an organic way and a mental, emotional, and physical way. We're meant to interact with certain geometries because we resonate more with those geometries. Mm-hmm. But it has to be another being or beings in the universe that resonate with this one and the other ones that we cannot interact.
Well, it makes me think of the visual spectrum, right? Because there's so many more electromagnetic frequencies that we can't see, but we can see the frequency ranges of visible light, and that's why they're visible light. But we can, sorry, my dog. But that we can only see that, right? But like, there's infrared, there's UV right on the other side of it, that we know creatures on Earth can see. Like actually, like reptiles can see in infrared. So it doesn't even have to be that far away off into the universe for those creatures that might, because I always like this thought of there's creatures out in the world that see out in outer space, that see in microwaves. And so when we started using all of these microwaves in our atmosphere, suddenly we became a planet that never even existed before. They they're like, oh my God, this planet just turned on and it just started making all this noise and it was never even there before. And it's like, no, they can just see us now because we have cell phones and we're using microwave technology and it's blasting into space from us now, and it might give some other species the incorrect perception that something physical happened on our planet in the ecosystem structure when it really was human technology anthropomorphizing this radiation, you know? So it's really weird like that, just to think of it in that kind of a idea or way too, that there are that we have limited, so we have this limited understanding of physics based on our ability to perceive things. So we think that the universe works in this way, and it does on our string, but other strings that's not applicable to.
Exactly. It works on our perspective. We have a saying like the lion thinks that everyone is has the same condition as his. Like not because you feel and see and experience life in a certain way has to do with everyone else experience, you know. And if we talk in something very big like the Milky Way, not even the universe, just the Milky Way, the perception how things work in this planet and this solar system to compare to another solar system has to be so different that just trying to and we are gonna have the same basic things like geometry, for example. We're gonna conclude the same thing. Life is based on geometry, everything, and their evolution, it has to thrive by geometry, like the same as ours. But they're gonna find out things that we cannot, and we're gonna find out things that they cannot. There's a reason that they are there and we are here. There's a reason that we are different and separate. The universe is playing different variables and options of what can be done on different aspects of limits, different limits of reality. And so we have to start thinking more about things that are not so similar to us. I think that almost every species, intelligent species of the universe, it will almost be something like the shape of a humanoid shape. Not because it has to do with what I was talking about before, like these forms are creating this is a mold of this masterpiece, or not like a masterpiece, like the piece that is the first piece of production, like in industrial time. So so every other species that has evolved by millions of years to reach the point of this type of consciousness and not only being an organic life form, but being able to develop a complex society and all these things, I think it has to evolve to a form similar to a humanoid. Maybe it has more legs, different shapes, different, but it will have a pattern, a visible pattern that it's gonna be very, very similar. It's like a constant. It's like it's a fractal. So it's like trees. Trees are trees in every part of the universe. Like rivers are rivers, and the circular system is the same.
Whatever variation of that many plane faces could occur, that's the consciousness that is tied to that many plane faces. So if you have this shape and your interior has 48 triangles, you are going to have 48 triangles worth of evolution in your consciousness, which would bring you to a similar point to another species, which also has 48 plane faces of consciousness in their cube.
And it has to do also with the connection between species that had evolved to a certain point, because atoms relate to atoms. Mm-hmm. So atoms in this part of the universe are very similar to atoms in the other corner of the universe. So it has to apply the same law to cells, to molecules, to organisms, to everything, to planets. We see planets. We haven't found a planet that is a pyramid or any other shape, like weird shape, right? Every planet and star are are following the same laws and the same forms and same shapes. Maybe stars have different purposes and different functions. So they transform their self and their lifespan to different types of stars, right? Mm-hmm. Like green, blue, white, and all those colors and all these density shapes, right? But they are all behaving in the certain, following the same laws. So I think it has to do with communication. We come back to the form, frequency, and function. So right now there's theory that talks about how water in the whole universe is connected by frequency. So information is flowing from one point to another point by water, like if it was like a part of the cosmic mind. Okay, but how it does that? By resonating, like the book that you showed me. So there's experiment. If you have a piano in one room and a piano in another room, and you play one note, and the note has a hammer, and the hammer hits the string, and the string vibrates, and the sound goes out, passes through the wall, and then comes into another piano and resonates with the same shape of the string and produces the same vibration again, and generating a certain function in space-time. So this is a proof of the same thing, form, frequency, and function. Now, there's another experiment made with DNA and how right now they're making DNA teletransportation, digital, using water, the memory of water. So they record the sound of DNA molecule in a laboratory, and that sound is digitalized, then sent to another laboratory in another part of the world. They have water and they have amino acids, like without structure, and but with the sound, with a coil and the frequency of the sound of the other DNA, they can the amino acids recreate the DNA again in that water. How it's done? Form, frequency, and function. It's a proof of my theory again.
Yeah.
So it's talking about the same thing over and over. The thing is that these scientists, they are not looking out to where else is this phenomenon happening and why is this phenomenon happening. They are only focused on their job, and there's a problem. Because if you just connect the certain points, you're gonna find out that behind all this there's logic. Now we can extrapolate this logic to intelligent beings. So to resonate life, to resonate with another organic complex life, has to have a form that creates a frequency that resonates with another form in another frequency in another space-time to create a function in the space-time and a communication on space-time. The same as the piano, the same as the molecule in the water. It's the same thing. So that's why I think that we are very, very similar. Mm-hmm. Not the same, but we have a lot of different things and shapes and forms. But we're creating.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I was just thinking because so like there's one major pond ripple, right? Like a big plop, and then a big ripple goes out. But then it's raining when that stone hits the surface. So that big ripple wave is going to go out and it's going to affect all these other things. But then there's also smaller waves that are in between that are affecting. So if something else, another sentient conscious being that's frequencing on the larger ripple with these ones is going to have variations because it's also responding to the smaller ripples in its environment that aren't present in the other species environment. And so that's going to build different things, even though they both have 48 sides, like 48 faces. So they're on the same, and it's sympathetic resonance, right? So if there's like a really loud noise, like a really, really powerful vibration, like you're saying, because sound waves will traverse solid objects. Like you can penetrate a wall with sound, but you can't penetrate a wall with light unless it's like super, super condensed laser beam of light. You're not going to be able to penetrate through a solid with that. And even if you do at that point, you're taking what you're doing is you're dismantling the solid and turning it into something else so that light can go through. And you're creating permanent change in that object. But sound doesn't require that. Sound can go through. It can be absorbed, or it can be acoustically changed, directed. There's a very different wave shape, right? You're talking about scalar waves, you're talking about transverse wave, you're talking about planes, and you're talking about space. So when a light frequency goes through, it won't penetrate it, but other electromagnetic frequencies will, right? And it also has to do with the density and the type of material that they're trying, because the X-rays will go right through, but it won't go through lead, right? Yeah. There's a point of density variation that doesn't sympathize with that sound frequency, right? That resonance won't penetrate certain types of materials when it comes to electromagnetic radiation, and even sound, because there is. But what's interesting is that the denser the material, the less likely that the EMF frequencies are going to go through it. But sound frequencies need like a more plush, soft material that will absorb them, right, to stop them. Because if it's a hard material, it's going to turn into this resonance. But if it's a soft material, it's going to kind of like cushion it and take it. So there's very different actions to different types of waves. And when we talk about frequency, what we're talking about in any type of wave, we're just talking about peaks and troughs and things that travel in this manner, but.
And also we are focusing right now on sound, but sound is a manifestation of vibration, and we can really generalize it to electromagnetic waves, to electromagnetic different frequencies, more than sound, because the sound is like light. It only manifests inside the earth. Outside the earth doesn't. There's no sound. There's no colors. There's only electromagnetic fields. But yeah, you're right. But there's another aspect of this information. One is the information that travels to the space, and the other is the information that travels inside the center of the toroid. So imagine that we have two ways of communicating: the inner part and the outer part. The outer part is almost impossible to connect, like how the sun communicates with the other solar systems and the Milky Way or in another galaxy. So they're not using the space. They're using the space, but in a different way, like to create certain reactions on a certain span, very a long span of time. So they have a lot of time to design and move things and pieces. But the information is traveling instantaneously by the center of the system. And there's where the relationship of frequencies are met, the relationship of electromagnetic wavelengths. So atoms communicate with atoms, cells communicate with cells, organisms with organisms, and so on. So they're not getting on the same channel that the other ones are, and there's a reason that everything vibrates in a different frequency level, because they're using their own channels for that reason, to don't don't get in the way of information of another channel. And right now, that's what we are doing. We're using technology that it's getting messed up information of the environment, getting messed up information about our bodies, ourselves, our molecules, and are creating a lot of cancer and all these things and mutations and things that has to do with the bad flow of information or the loss of information of DNA and all these things.
The thing, I mean, well, that makes a lot of sense since cancer is apoptosis. Like they forget, like the cells forget to go away. You know, like the dead cells. It's kind of zombie. It's zombie cell syndrome, basically. Like it comes. It's interesting how it does affect our health physically, but also like our mental health. So like it's like our mental channels, our emotional channels, our spiritual channels manifest in our physicality, right? So that's why I know I'm a smoker, I know I am, but I get upset a little bit sometimes when people are like, you need to eat organic and you need to do all this, but then they're just totally like being jerks to one another or judging people or telling me what I shouldn't do. Well, now you're considering somebody else and not yourself. And so now that's not healthy. You know what I mean? I feel like there's this huge like reshuffling right now. Like we're trying to understand what we once inherently knew about ourselves, but now we're so far removed from it that we have to like re-understand what is healthy for us, who we are as healthy beings, as beings, as nature, as a part of things, and
what is food? What is food? Because food is not only what you put in your mouth.
No.
There's a thing of our body. We are three bodies. We're a trinity. We're three bodies in one, but two of them are energetical and one is a physical. So what is the physical body? The physical body is the whole body, the organic body. And what are the energetical bodies? Are the energy, the electromagnetic energy created by the brain and the electromagnetic energy created by the heart. We have two toroids, and those are energetic bodies. They're the vibrational part of our system. And the other is the physical, the matter, the form part of the system, that it's making this to possible, that it's nurturing this to happen. So the body not only needs to feed itself with matter, it only needs to feed itself with energy, with thoughts and emotions, good thoughts and good emotions, and not from other people. Because other people can, nobody gives you nothing. You create it by resonating with other people's feelings and thoughts. Because a lot of people say, well, these people did this, so I feel this way. These people did this to me, or projected this energy to me. No, you grab that energy and created inside you a reaction. The reaction is yours, not the other people's reaction. The energy that you are feeling is yours. It's a reaction that you decided to take about the things that reality are facing you with. So we have to be very conscious about that.
Well, I think too, though, there's a lot of like you're talking about energy fields around your body, and those are generated by your emotions. So there's a lot of reaction to those energy fields on an unconscious level because people don't even realize that those fields exist. Like I get very tired if I deal with a large amount of people for any amount of time because it takes a lot of my energy to keep my energy in me and your energy in you. Okay. Like, and so, it's like if you're at a concert and music's playing, everybody is vibrating at the resonant frequency of that music. So now we're one whole body, and I'm not bothered at all about being in a room full of people. And as a matter of fact, when I leave, I'm probably energized because we all collectively filled ourselves with energy. Right. But say I go to a conference, right? I have to force myself to be in the room after a certain period of time just because, and it depends what the conference, it depends on the lecture, it depends on the energy of the room, but any amount of too many people for too long, and I'm going to need to take a break and go rest, because if I don't do that, what I realize after time is I am affected, and they are my choices, but I'm getting angry, I'm getting short-tempered, I'm getting impatient, and I don't understand why I have this general frustration or pissed off or whatever it is. But then I'm like, is that mine? Right. And a lot of people don't realize that there are energy fields, right? And so repulsion actually is an attraction to the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Okay. I am just really want to be over here now. Because after so much, it's just too much. Yeah. But I think that until I understood that, right? Until I understood, like, this is the exterior situation. I don't need to own this. Like, I was at the store earlier, and one lady was being really impatient. She got bitchy with the lady that was behind the counter, and suddenly the other girl's nervous, and now this other lady's nervous, and now this other lady's tapping her feet, and all of a sudden I'm getting an anxiety like feeling because this one woman made one negative action that like suddenly repercussed through the whole aisle like of people, and we're all like, exactly. And then I'm like, okay, wait a minute, I feel this now, and I see it going on with the other people. So all I can do is remain calm, smile, and make an offhanded joke, like a funny comment about something else that's going on, and let them have their moment with it, and then it all comes back down. But every person that was unaware of that field, that shared field, reacted to it. There was an undulation in their energy from it. But being aware, okay, this isn't mine. I can feel this here, but this isn't mine. I don't have to behave that way, But it also comes to a point sometimes where you're in like social situations or situations with like larger amounts of people where you can't escape, or where you have an investment. All right. And you have
or you have a close relationship with that person, or is your mom, or is your dad, or your husband, or something. You cannot go away or say, well, I'm not bothered about this, because it's very...
That's why they have you. That's why you have each other. That's the point of friends and family, is to help you help regain some balance, give you some comfort, and a lot of times, again, because people don't understand those familial interactions, or that's that's just their shit. That's not mine. That is a hard differentiation because you're like, that is my mom. That is my shit. What are you talking about? You know? And then you're like, no. You know, she's just having a moment. I don't need to absorb that. Me eating that for her isn't going to make her lose weight in this sense. It's just not. All it's going to do is bring it in to me too. And I think that this is a whole societal thing. Exactly. That's going on right now. And, you know, with the whole lockdowns and being stuck inside for a minute, and so many people, and it's like Americans just have this like terrible sense of ODD, you know, just oppositional defiance disorder. Like, we just don't want to do it because you told us we had to, you know? And it's like, well, look what's happening now, you know? It was awful. It really wasn't. It didn't. So we get this time, okay? We gotta sit in, and we're off work. At first we were frustrated, then we step away from the rat race, and then we realize that we're getting to spend time with our families, and we start to really relax. And most people cannot spend 5 minutes with themselves, and suddenly you have to spend all this time with yourself. Oh my God. And now you go back to it, you know, you're like, my brother owns a company, and I'm like, how's everything going since you guys got back to work? And he's like, it's just not the same. It's like the motivation isn't there. Because before, everybody was powered by this rat race. Everybody needed to go to the next job. Their major priority, their major push, it was to get the job done, to get the next job. And now everybody's like, I really wish I was at home, you know, unless I was having lunch with my 3-year-old, or, you know what I'm saying? Like finishing that laundry that like things that we would normally would be like, not hang out with your kids, but the laundry part, things that you'd like, you know, whatever, and put off and not do. Now you realize like that's a sense of myself. That's caring for my home. That's my space. That's my valuable time. Like when I feel better when my dishes are done. I feel better when I've had the time to spend with my family. I don't really want to go to work. I don't really want to give my hours to the man. I don't want to do any of that. And it's like now all of the sudden, and I mean, it is really sudden, because if you think about eternity and then you think about 3 months, you know, you're like, guess what? Our priorities have changed. Our values have changed. Our view of ourselves has really changed. And not just I think the rest of the world is doing a little better, and we're going to eventually catch up. But it's like this, we don't want to be told what to do, and we're not going to do it just because you told us to do it. And that's the inability to sit with yourself. That is the king of being driven by the wrong idea, you know, and we're going to adjust to it, whether we like it or not. And the more resistance, the more it's going to persist, because what you resist persists. It wants to exist. It wants to come into manifestation. It wants to be blown open. Like, if you're having this weird feeling about something, until you address that feeling, it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And you're like, man, I really, really, really want, say, like a caramello bar. Okay, I've been wanting a caramello bar for a week, and I've eaten Kit Kats, and I've had Butterfingers, I've had all of this, but I am not sated because I need a caramello. And then as soon as you have the caramello, it's like you give a shit if you eat chocolate again for the rest of the month. You know what I mean? It's just that feeling will not go away until you address it, until you shine light on it, until you say, this is what it is. And so now that we've had this ability to sit and do that for a minute, we can't not look at it now. Now that you've opened that box and you're like, oh my God, look at all of these triangles inside. Look at all of these colors. Look at how all of it works. Like, that box will never be the same to you. And every single cube you look at, you're taking it apart and thinking and dividing it into 1,000 triangles on the inside and stretching it out. And now every situation that looked like a cube before looks like this totally other thing. And that's, I think, where we're at. And I think that's why things like this and are manifesting, right? They're popping open, and it's time to step into this space. Okay, we had our moment, shake it off. This isn't what's the priority. This is what the priority is. And now we can go forward. Now we can actually get somewhere, you know?
Yeah, and it has to do with stillness. One of the things that I found out is that the only place that you can see with perspective is with non-movement. not moving, standing still. When you stand still, you see how all the parts are going from there to there, and they cannot see each other. They cannot see you. They only see their path, where I'm going from here to there.
Right.
It's so impressive that, like, I love to walk all the time. I had a car, but I have never used it. Like when I was 18, my parents bought me a car, and the car get old there, and they eventually sold it because I
Never used it.
yeah. I prefer to grab a taxi from one point to another, to walk the most I could in a day, because I love to walk and to see the city and to know the city, to know my space. But I have asked this question a lot of times to a lot of persons, and you can ask it too to a lot of persons. If you go from this point to this point, what is in this part of the city? What building is? What is here? Have you noticed that here is a statue of something?
Mm-hmm.
No, nobody noticed. Nobody knows where they live, because they're always running in the car, in fast, in a zombie mode. So they go to a car. They're thinking about the present, the future, or the past in their minds, and all the path that they go from one foot to another point, they're not there. They're not present. Right. So they're always running and not seeing reality, not seeing anything, not seeing why they're moving or who they are or what their thoughts are. They're just reacting to reality. They're not living, they're reacting. So I decided to stop moving, like really stop moving, in the sense of like I work from home for a lot of years. I have my business here, and I have my office and my shop there with my machines and all that. And I'm very happy that I decided to do this from at least like 8 years from now, because I see everyone else, and until now, everyone didn't understand me. Like everyone believed that I was crazy.
You're like, it's awesome. You gotta try it.
Yeah. And also they found out something that happened to me when I stopped moving. I had to see myself. I had to address being alone and be happy being alone, and for me, alone is being with the best friend I ever had, because I'm not alone. I'm with myself, and that's a lot. So
you're good company, so you get,
yeah, exactly. So I discovered that when you are alone, you have to see yourself in the mirror, and you cannot lie to yourself anymore. You cannot lie to what you are thinking, because you have a lot of time to think. And when you have a lot of time to think, then you start to hear the voice, like very clearly what is in your mind, what is bothering you, what is affecting you and make you make things, what is motivating you to act in a certain way or to react to other people in a certain way. And when I focus this, I started a process that right now I see in a lot of people, that it's okay. Now I see my trash. Now I see that I have a big bag over here, like
I'm dragging one.
Yeah. And I can barely walk with this. And I get frustrated and angry and anxious with almost any reaction, because every reaction is talking about my trash. Is making me see my trash, and I don't like to see my trash, so I have to drink, smoke, drug myself and to make that voice go away, to make that feeling numb. And that's the only way. And I did it for a lot of years. I don't feel like shame or nothing to say that I had for a lot of years drugs, consume of drugs, and I cannot say that I had a problem with drugs. I didn't have a problem with drugs. I just live in this environment that it was toxic. That the only way to live it was doing drugs, like weed. Like why all the world right now is consuming weed? Why it's almost legal and all that? I love weed. I don't use it anymore. But weed is perfect. If you don't have responsibilities, if you don't have life, weed is perfect. If you live in Iceland where all day you can be like taking the sun and you don't have purpose in life and motivation to do anything, okay, smoke weed every day, all day. It's perfect. But if you want to do something, if you want to grow as a being, you want to explore all the possibilities that life has to offer and be the best version of yourself, you have to pass all those illusions. There are illusions. You have to pass all those chains. They're like chains.
They're bindings.
Yeah, bindings. They're very pleasant, but
Well, that's what the devil is. I mean, and when I say the devil, I mean card number 15 of the tarot, okay? Because the devil is the equivalent of the lovers, but maybe it's dark equivalent, right? And so the lovers is actually a choice. It's number 6. The devil is 15. 1 + 5 is 6. And the cards are very similar. And what it basically represents is like these things that we bind ourselves to, but we could leave at any moment. There are things that we're bound to that we can't leave. You know what I mean? Like if you have a severe illness, or you have a severe injury, or you have like a child who needs help, these are things that you are bound to, that you have no choice. You have to continue to go. There's other things we choose to stay with. We choose to bind ourselves in, you know? And I think like on marijuana, I think is a medicine for a lot of people because it allows them that solitude, that internal monologue that they aren't used to. So because I am a big proponent of marijuana, and I actually grew it for years as an income, and it kept me motivated and it kept me doing something. And when I stopped doing it, I actually had like a pretty negative, not stopped growing it, but like the capacity or whatever. It was like I had this pretty negative response to it, because what I figured out was it wasn't just the weed, like smoking the weed, right? It was also being in that garden. It was being with that particular variety of plant, because it's so intensely domesticated that it's dependent on humans as much as humans are dependent on it as part of our history. And so there's certain aspects of the human biofeature that it addresses in a natural way, and most of that is psychological, right? I mean, it's physical medicine, but there's like a friend of mine has like a really hard time with her internal monologue. She doesn't have one. She just talks. And I'm like, are you talking to yourself in the car? Like, I'm like, when you think, do you have thoughts? Like, are they words? Are you seeing pictures? Are you having feelings? Like, what does your thought process do? Because I think in words. I think in words and I think in images. And I'm I hear and I see, and then I can close my eyes and be there, manifest. It's there. You might as well touch it. So it's hard for me to understand how somebody can think in a different way, are you hearing things? Are you seeing things? Are you just feeling it? How does that manifest inside of your head when you can't sit and let yourself talk to yourself inside without letting it out. And this is important because, like you're saying, like you're your best friend. You can sit by yourself and you can do this because you enjoy the conversation that you're having with yourself. And when someone else comes from the exterior, they're kind of interrupting that. So unless you're ready to have that, you know, like I was kind of talking to myself here, excuse me. Unless you're ready to be interrupted in that, you're gonna not, you know, maybe not welcome company. But other people are the opposite, and they want their constant company because they can't be by themselves for very long. And that's comes like this line. I'm like, is this what's codependency and what's a healthy interactive relationship? And am I codependent on myself because I want to sit and talk to myself? And are they like codependent on something, like they or them? I'm just saying like this person or that person, this type of thinking, that type of thinking, interior versus exterior. And it comes down to the masculine and the feminine, like you were talking about. Like the masculine form is this solid thing. It's exterior, it's tangible, it's moving, we can see it. I'm just gonna put my computer in here because it's sprinkling. But the feminine is internal. It is that internal monologue. It's that what's inside, and we can't see it, but we can feel it. And so because we're so uncomfortable with things that we can't see, because we can't understand what we can't see, we're just not going to look at the inside of ourselves. And I think that's where this whole like masculine, feminine, this like toxic patriarchy is not like toxic men. It's a toxic exterior approach, you know, and not having a feminine, which is not having that interior approach.
And the intuition that comes with the feminine part.
Exactly. And we don't have the intuition because, like you said, when you sit, that's when you hear it. Mm-hmm. When you sit by yourself and you allow okay, that's somebody else's thoughts. That's the exterior thought. Okay, that's my thought. All right, now my thoughts are going. Well, what's that?
Yeah, exactly. What is passing to your mind not always is your mind. That's another thing. Like maybe you're hearing the echo of the voice of your parents that you had the same speech over 10 years, the same speech, and then you're alone, you're hearing the same speech. It's not your voice, it's a recording of every time that this person talk about something and say something to you, and now you think that voice in your head is your voice, and you have to start to separate one thing to another thing. And also you touch a very important point, that what is the healthy relationship with yourself and with the environment. It has to be a middle ground, like an equilibrium, because what I think about myself is not myself. What others think about myself is not myself. Myself is the whole. Myself is the interaction between me internally, me externally, and me in the interaction with other people. So when I balance that, I can really start to be coherent with what I really am, who I really am, how I really am, and not because that way you can start to say, well, I thought that I was a good person, but look, so this guy and this guy is saying this about me. Maybe I'm not so good person. Maybe I had to change this and this. So you come to conscious, to start to be conscious about certain things that maybe you're not able to see by yourself about you, and applies the other way around. Maybe people are not seeing something that you can only see about yourself. So it always has to be a dialogue between the inside and the outside.
I like that though, because you made it like the trinity of self, right? The exterior view, your view of your exterior view, and your internal view of like the whole situation of the self, right? Did I lose you?
Yes, and it always works like this. It always works in a base of tree. Look.
Oh.
Everything is tree in a fundamental basic point. Like 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
My screen froze for a second because I got your face, but you're not talking. You're just frozen. So I'm gonna.
Oh.
It's just
Can you hear
Skype.
me? Yeah.
I can hear you. And I never lost. There you are. Okay, yeah, it's Skype just does this.
Yeah,
But
I was
okay, so
telling
show
you
me
that.
3 again. Show me 3 again.
Like 1, 2, 3. Everything is composing the fundamental level of elements that have 3 parts. And why is this? Because 3 is a stable point. It's a stable geometry. This is the only geometry that is stable, actually. The best example for that is if you have like a popsicle, like the sticks, and you put joints on the sticks, on the end of the sticks, and you connect it. If you connect 3 sticks, you connect 4 sticks, and you let it go, it's gonna do this, and it's gonna form a line. You have 5 sticks, a line. 6 sticks, a line. 7 sticks, infinity sticks, a line. But you have 3 sticks, it's gonna be solid, and it's not gonna be able to move anywhere. It's the only geometry that has stability. The only one. There's a reason that, yeah, if you put joints on a 3 sticks, it's not gonna be able to bend, to move.
Each side is receiving the pressure of the other side,
Mm-hmm.
and there is no down. There is no real down because of the angle. Like they're all.
Yeah, it compresses.
Exactly. Then that's why the arch is effective too, right? I mean, for the same principle there. So.
Yeah. So it's telling you that the life is based on 3, so we can talk about information. So it's the same thing to connect to the cosmic information basis. You connect by 3 points. You have your external self, your conscious external self. You have your internal self, or the unconscious. That is independent of you, the one that I'm talking with, and those 2 points that you are connect to that 3rd point that is the universe, or the sun, or whatever you're channeling to. But you connect to the higher information point by 2 points with the 3rd one, a trinity. But when you communicate with another person, it's the same fractal, but in another level. So you and me are communicating, but we are connecting to another higher point. This higher point, we are not only transmitting information that we want to transmit, why do we decided unconsciously to, we had like a questionnaire, right?
Yeah.
Where is it?
Yeah. Right.
There's a way that information flows in its own mind. It has a mind of its own. Why? Because things are happening the way they had to happen. And who is behind it? The 3rd connection, the higher connection. So me and you are communicating what we want to communicate in a certain limit, and the other point is influencing our flow of information to get to a certain point that we have to go. And it's the same with 3 persons. And actually, is the best basis of communication is with 3 persons. And you can see it in all history, because look, Leonardo da Vinci painted the Last Supper. There's some code inside them that has to do with the flow of information. I'm gonna show it to you right now.
I know, isn't technology grand?
Yeah.
Like does these amazing things and we still get mad at it. We're like, why?
Look at this. Look how they are divided in groups. That's not by chance.
No.
It has to do with this that I was talking about, how information flows and what is the best arrangement for a group of persons. So they are divided in groups of 3. Each group has an equilibrium, a positive, a negative, and a neutral. Look at the image and you can find the neutral, the positive, and the negative in each group.
Yeah. The one that's active, the one that's listening, and the one that's like kind of passive.
Yeah, or is like 2 of them are showing a lot of emotion, and one of them or is pacified them or is just non-reactive, or it's trying to unite them, or it's the center of attention. Like the one on the right is saying like they're like saying the 2 guys are saying like different dialogues. One is red, one is blue, and the other one I think is red. They're showing polarity, and they're arguing about something that is happening to another guy that is a neutral one, and it's saying like, hey, like chill out.
Right.
And in the center, almost to the right, there's a guy that looks almost like Jesus, and he's saying like, hey, like be careful, like don't mess with him or something like that. And the other side, there's a guy that it's in front of the table, just looking and reaching out with their hands like, hey, like and another expression of calming the person. And the other one is like aggressive, passive, and the other one is aggressive. The other one is united the 2 of them in the corner. It actually is like almost grabbing one of them. And the other hand doesn't show, but it's like unified them. One of them looks like very serious but angry. Look at the hands, like how he's grabbing the corner of the table, and the other one is like scared. So he's showing you how communication works, and it works like this. We're not conscious about it all the time, but if you start to analyze the spontaneous communication of the groups that you go to and why people relate to them, to each other in a certain way, you're going to start finding that there's always a positive, a negative, and a neutral in every relationship, in every friendship.
Absolutely. And the number 3 and the triangle were compositional favorites of Da Vinci. It was his, let's say, like go-to compositional structure, but that's kind of what his defining element is when you're looking at Da Vinci paintings. You're like, that's definitely, because sometimes you're like, was that a student of, or he didn't sign most of his work, so there's a lot of question of pieces like, was that Da Vinci's or was that a student of his or whatever. And one of the strongest defining features is the use of triangles, the repetitive use of triangles, and the use of a triangle as like the main form, like Madonna of the Rocks or any of those. It's very, even the Mona Lisa is very triangular in shape.
Yeah, and he used a mix of feminine and masculine because he uses triangles, squares based on golden ratio proportions, making a grid, a square grid. And he also uses circles, the feminine, to create the curves of the elements and the people that there are in the paintings, but in a very complex way because he was using the phi matrix, and by the phi matrix he was making circles in some paintings. I found out that it was the same diameter circle, and with the same circles repeated all over the painting, he created a part of the face of one person, and the same circle was a part of the leg of another person, and the feet, and the face, and the hair, and the part of part of the background.
Wow.
Same circle. So he uses a very complex geometric composition to express his very profound knowledge about how the universe works. And coming back to this about how information works in the human connection, we can find the same pattern of 12 and 1 in all history. Almost every prophet and every enlightened person had 12 disciples, getting to 13 on a total number. And it's not a coincidence. It has to do with geometry again. What do we have in the basis of volume? The basis of volume is a tetrahedron. A tetrahedron has 4 faces or 4 groups of 3 polygons, of 3 side polygons. It's the same thing. It's the basis of geometry, of volume geometry, 3-dimensional geometry. And here is being expressed as a fractal in the way humans connect to each other in the most fundamental group essence. So it's not a coincidence. It's just a function of organic human existence.
Hey, Rhonda, you ever heard of anything like this before?
Oh, sure, Earl. Everybody knows about them. We just didn't tell you. Oh, hell, man, no one ever saw anything like this. We're really onto something here.
Can explain it like in a simple way. It has to do with, okay, everything. There's something very curious about basic geometry. Again, at the beginning, I was talking about how my work is based on more about logic and philosophical understanding, and re-understanding the basic knowledge that we think we know or understand. And I found out something very, very curious and important and almost funny, like like very, very funny, because the first thing that we are taught about math is geometry. We only look at in a very simplistic way, like, oh, geometry is very simple, like, oh, shapes and forms and angles, yeah, basically, right? But we don't really understand anything, and the proof of that is that when we learn 2D geometry, polygons, they they tell us like, okay, this is the triangle, has 3 sides, this is the square, this is the pentagon, this is the hexagon. And if we continue, there's an infinite amount of geometries, finishing with the infinite number of sides, right? So, and we'd start with the 1.
Right.
But this is, we can see right now that there's something wrong with this, because if we continue from the triangle to this side,
and go to the infinite number of sides, we're going to go back to this one. This one is a dual function form because it's the shape that has one side and it's this shape that has infinite sides. It's the only shape that has two functions in the system in this system, right? It's the beginning and it's the end at the same time. Okay. So this is telling us that this is a closed circuit. This is a closed loop. So what happened with this guy?
It's a line, right?
This is the two. Where is the two?
Well, right, but I mean, just from a design perspective, 2 is 2 points. It's like it's a line. It's not a three-dimensional form. It's a plane, right? No, where is the 2?
No, I'm talking about a 2D shape like that has surface. So a line will be a one-dimensional
Right.
shape. So in 2 dimensions, where is the 2? And it's missing.
It's missing. No, it's not there. Mm-mm.
How is that possible? How do nobody pay attention to this very simple detail? Uh, and it's because, like Plato said, geometry manifests in our minds because we're connected to the cosmic mind. So we can see geometry even if we don't see it in the organic reality, right? How if rocks and all these things uh, with certain exceptions like salt and the mines, there are cubes, but almost everything is fractal, so we don't see the basic shapes of things. Even though we, in a certain in very old times, understood these shapes and were these guys were able to modulate them in 3D shapes and all that, right? So what happens to this very simple fact? This very simple fact is very strange because we really see this shape and everything. It's something that it's hidden in plain sight, not like these things. Okay, yeah, these things are difficult to find in reality, but the 2D shape of two sides is everywhere, even on our faces. It's on our
It's like the symmetrical. What is it? Like an ellipse? Yeah. The mouth?
two
The eye.
sides.
It's like an almond shape or an ellipse.
Yeah, the seeds. Look the relationship between those facts. Eyes, mouth, pussy, seed. What are those things doing
Yeah,
in
they're all
reality?
ellipses.
They're, this shape is hidden because it's very important. Because it it's something that it's in plain sight for you to don't see it. The
Yeah.
reality doesn't want you to understand this
Yeah, it never
because
occurred to me that shape that you're talking, which is everywhere, including all
yeah.
over my face. Yeah, never like what? And I talk about geometry a lot. Like, no one has brought this up in year. Like, how long am I going to say? But so why don't we notice this shape?
Because it's one of the biggest secrets of about life. This shape is determining how information is communicated from one system to another. So, what is the purpose of the mouth? Expressing information. Not only expressing information, also internalizing uh, information that it's food. What is the purpose of the eye?
Yes.
Internalizing information that is visual and energetic information. What is the purpose of the vagina? Internalizing information that it's a new being. What is the purpose of the seed? externalizing information. It's a form that compresses information. What is the purpose of a leaf? Receiving information.
Right.
So that's the reason. Because if you know that, then you know a big secret about how the universe is doing something very important. And the universe doesn't want you to know that if you're not capable of uh, handling this with responsibility. So geometry starts in three, not even in one. Because if you know the geometry starts in one, you're gonna see that there's a two missing. So geometry starts at three, and we consider the circle as something separate from geometry,
Yeah.
separate from a polygon. So circle is not a polygon. A circle is a circle.
But what you did
You
was you
understand?
turned from zero to infinity into the Ouroboros,
Yeah.
the
And
snake that
when,
eats.
yeah, the snake that eats itself, because everything is like that. I understood that when I was before I realized this, I stumbled upon this.
Well, because that shape is all over your shapes.
Yeah, but this was before I discovered this.
Right,
So
but that shape that you're talking about, um, ah,
yeah,
I have a lot of things in my room. Hold on. But okay, so when we think about the flower of life, think about the flower of life and that shape that you're showing. Um, hold on a second. Okay, can you see this? Does this actually show up? All right.
yeah,
Okay, so see that shape over and
yeah,
over and over in the flower of life.
yeah. There's this there
It's
exactly.
it's the
It's the
braid.
basis. It's the basis of the flower of life.
So this is an interesting thing too because the more of those braids there are, the different significant value of like three braid lines, 9 braid lines. They're different aspects of the flower of life geometry. So the more of those spaces that there are, the more communication is and that's another weird thing that you're talking because this I'm
And they're encapsulating information. Look, there's
well
a part of the flower of life that is like this, and then inside that it has one that it's like this.
that it had see the triangle, the uh, the
That
triangle with the inverted exactly, and that's all over your other shape. There is the same shape that's repeated in this flower of life.
yeah, and what like you were saying, the proportions are different. Like there's a very thin ones, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a very big ones that are the basic apishi.
Mm-hmm.
Are it's a very fat one,
Yeah.
but the ones on the next level of fractality are very thin ones. They are the ones that are
Yeah.
inside of the basic apishi. So uh, it's very obvious, but that's the thing that struck me. Like, okay, what is happening here? How? Why people are blind? It's like color blind. Like we're shape blind, but it has to do with knowledge. You cannot see something that you don't understand until
Well, you
you
don't have
understand.
vocabulary for it. Yeah.
Yeah, until you understand the information of the or the concept that is behind it, then you're gonna start seeing it. Before not. So I realized this when I stumble upon certain things that had to do with how reality was working on a physical, chemical level, and with the flower of life and different things. That then they collapse, and
Your
my
face. Your
yeah,
face has these two and this triangle, and then it goes back down into a triangle.
Yeah. And look, your face is the same shape. All your face. Look your face. All your face.
Yeah.
Your face.
Now I'm like,
Look.
now after I talk to you, from now on, I'm just going to be seeing all of these, and every time I see you, it's going to go blah, 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 blah. Because it's totally different now. It's like these same
Yeah.
old things that are totally different. I mean, totally different things. It's the point didn't change, just the perspective of it
Exactly.
did. And
So that is the beauty of um changing your perception of what you think you know changes the meaning about things or your preconception about things. It always has to change to be able to evolve to different ways of thinking and knowing and understanding reality and changing your perception of what you think it is. Then you're gonna notice that everything you think you know is not what you think you know. And one of the examples that I have put in my lectures is that imagine a kid. You have a kid in Africa, and this guy lives in a desert, in a the Sahara Desert, or I don't know, a desert that doesn't have any plants.
okay.
And in his village, he goes to a school. He's like 3 years old. He goes to a kindergarten, and the teacher is telling them about plants and trees and all that, and so the teacher doesn't have image reference or anything. So he tells them, "Look, kids, this is a tree." Whoa, that's not a tree. That's a symbol of the tree.
Mhm.
So if you go anywhere in the world, almost everyone is gonna draw something like this.
Right.
There's some there's something in our collective unconscious mind that we identify the symbol. We can all consolidate on the same symbol almost everywhere, for some exceptions, right? Then, so now the kid thinks this is a tree. He doesn't have any reference, just this. So years pass, and he's 5, and now he goes to a park in another city, and he'll visit someone. So their parents take him to a park, and now he interacts with a real tree, but it's a certain type of tree. It's not the tree that we see. It's a tree that is like very strange, like this, almost like there's certain trees in Africa like this. So he knows now that the tree is this one, not all the species of trees, this type of tree. He receives the information by all his senses, like he smelled it, he tasted the tree, and hugged the tree, and everything. Right now, he has a collection of information about what is physically a tree, height and dimension and all that. Right, color and all the things. So now this evolves to this concept. So the preconception is redefined by the new knowledge of sensory information. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, years pass, and now the kid is 10 years old, and he learns in the school that the tree is also alive. He breathes, he interacts with the gases, he has a type of veins in his body that run savia, like what is it called? The substance of, yeah, the substance. And he has parts of his body like leaves and other things, branches. Now he goes again to the park, and he goes to a tree and he feels that the tree is alive for the first time. Now it's not a thing. Before it was a thing, something solid and like a rock. But when he discovers by understanding that the tree is alive, like you and me, now he can feel that the tree is alive. So the previous understanding of what was a tree changes and it's evolving to a more complex understanding. So from here on, if you continue adding more and more information, and then you understand that the trees are composed of cells like your body and molecules and atoms and all that, and you pack all that information to the tree, then you're gonna start experiencing it in a whole new level. And that's my point about what we have been doing wrong. We have established certain concepts and we think those concepts are absolute. Those concepts don't are not gonna to change. We understand reality. We know what things are, and that's so not true. We don't understand anything. We have parts of the puzzle, but
Right.
we have never integrated it to a certain way that we can say, well, I not only think reality or feel reality or perceive reality, now I experience a whole
I am
spectrum of,
reality.
yeah, I am reality. And
Right. Well, because there's a certain removal from it when you don't equate things to your liking. Like, and I don't mean like liking as in like preference. I mean as in a like you. You know, when you see something. And what's interesting about that whole analogy is that no matter what, now that kid will still see the symbol of the tree. We will still draw the tree like that. We still will. I'm a gardener. I've been a gardener for 25 years and I'm an artist and I will still draw the tree like that. You know what I'm saying? It's now this simple form, this simple circle, this simple triangle, this simple tree is something entirely different. And it's still the same symbol for it. And we could talk about symbols. I really, really enjoy symbolism. I really enjoy the alphabets. I really think that all of these things are the simplest way of describing that, you know, like a picture's worth 1,000 words because of all of those attachments that you have just described being an experiential image. Now it isn't just a little, you know, like contour line drawing. It's not like this little simple thing. Now it is an experiential image because you can be in that, you know, you can be like where you're sitting right now. I have not been to where you are right now, but I've been so near to where you are right now that the light in the room brings me there. Like, oh, well, you know what I mean? I'm in San Diego. Yeah. I can feel the way the sun hits differently, and I'm not there, but it does because you saw how gray it is, and it's raining out here, and I'm further north, and in like, you know, the sun sits.
Look the reflection. Look the reflection.
Yeah, look at that. See, yeah, see. That's that's the Baja Coast. That's the way that the sun shines at that angle of the equator. And there's something reminiscent about it. So when you sit there in that light, it's not just light. To me, it's that place. Like I can almost smell the ocean. I can feel the dirt on the sidewalk that bakes because it doesn't rain enough to really wash it away. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
About having those types of connective experiences with little visual triggers that allow you to transcend space and time and be in that. Like now, whenever that kid sees that drawing of the tree, he may feel that he's in the shade of it. He may feel the breeze underneath of it. He might be able to smell the soil coming up, because he has now had that experience, that of that real visceral quality that's given to you by this anything but visual, that small visual indicator. And I think that that's the most primal way for humans to communicate, because that's even with ourselves, because that's the simplest form, right? It takes up the least amount of space in your capacity. Because the way I feel about it is that if you're either spending time capacitating, or you're spending time processing. You don't always get to keep all the stuff that you process through. You keep
Yeah.
what you have the capacity for. So there's, like Einstein said, there's like that art of forgetting, because if I have all this crap in my brain, I just can't possibly think about the thing that I need to think about. So we take things down to the smallest possible space, so that we can just have that associative, and we don't have to carry around the whole tree, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah, and yeah, and Einstein said it too. The simplest way to express something is the most beautiful way to express something is the most simplest way, something like that.
mhm.
And also, Da Vinci said the same thing in a different way. Um, he said the art that it's most beautiful is the most simplest to communicate.
Mm,
So it has to do with simplicity. Simplicity.
yeah.
So I didn't put like 10 equations, and this represents an equation from a limit to a limit. What is the limit? Look, this is the transition. This transition goes from one end to the middle to the next end. And if in that pathway, in that road, I can take some other roads, but also they're gonna go back and then they're gonna go to the end. So this is the beginning, this is the middle part of the system, and this is the last part of the system.
Wow.
Look what is happening. Look at the
Yeah.
lines, how they align. Why? What is this? Remember, this is the masculine shape of a form. What will be the feminine shape? It's a toroid.
Which one?
So what is describing this model specifically? It's describing how you turn a cube that in its feminine aspect it's a sphere, and how this sphere you bend it and put more energy and more energy to it, and then you divide it in two parts. That in a feminine way it will be like an electron that has two poles. Have you seen that shape?
Mm-hmm.
There's like imagine it will be like a balloon. You have the balloon and then you twist it and and you get two parts of the balloon. Then you twist it more and you convert it into uh a toroid. And actually it's describing a equation that it's already been written, and it's describing how topological surfaces of a sphere transform into a toroid, passing by these phases. But supposedly, in the theory, you cannot do it physically.
But you did.
Yeah, it's here. Because in the theory, it says that you had to pass a negative and positive space, like if a space like if the shape crosses itself. But that's not true. The thing is, they don't understand how space is bent. So you can do this. It's a very complex way to bend something.
Well, look
How
at.
you turn, yeah, how you turn a sphere into a toroid, and but I didn't make anything. I just connected the pieces. This talks for itself. This is the thing. I just started to do what it wanted to do, and eventually I came out with this shape. So it's not about what I want to make, or oh, I want to express this
Right.
equation.
You're
No,
letting the shape like intuitively build itself through you. You're just
yeah,
letting it happen. And it's a form of didactic multiplicity because you're repeating the same shape into a three-dimensional form and then repeating that three-dimensional form into another shape that is having continuous and varied conversations with itself.
exactly. I'm just like in reality, I'm just being the medium.
Yeah.
I'm just I'm just being the one that it's here to express something that has to be expressed, and then because if I wanted to do something with this that I want to do, I will break it.
Well, but there you go. And that's another thing about what you talked about in the beginning about how you were going to do this thing and there was money behind it and there was big wigs behind it and there was all this stuff behind it and that fell through because that's not what the shape wants. That's
Exactly.
there's a reason that you've been gifted this information from the universe. And I know that kind of sounds like new agey whatever, but it's not. It's you are connected to that string and you are open to receive the information. When you put a block on it, like money, or because that's an intention, like somebody wants you to pay this for this, somebody wants you to do this thing with the incentive of you receiving this other thing. Well, now it's about that. It isn't about
Yeah.
the thing that you were making, the thing that you were doing, and that's actually a mark of a true artist. That's what inspiration truly is. And like Picasso said, I learned to paint like Raphael in 4 years. It took me a lifetime to learn to paint like a child.
Yeah. and and it's true. It's true.
The
And
simplicity.
the simplicity and the purpose. What is the real purpose? Why are you doing the things you are doing? You're doing it because you wanna have leverage of something, or you wanna gain something about it. What is that you're gaining? Like, and yeah, I have something for me in this. What is I am in this because I know that this is the path to knowledge. This is the path to um, wisdom. This is the path to equilibrium and understanding and peace and love and all those things. I can find it looking inside these models and all the models and all the geometry and all that. That is my goal, and this is the path to healing. This is the
Yeah.
path to giving and reestablishing order. So that's my reason. That's my purpose, and that's the basis of my work. And um, I had I don't see it like that anymore. But in a certain point, I thought like, well, I have sacrificed a lot of things in my life for this reason, right? In another lifetime, I thought that, right? Because I see friends that had family and kids and all that. I want to have kids in a certain point in my life, but I know that these are my kids. Mm, these are my kids because
Your grandchildren.
yeah,
But
I have been nurturing this information in a certain way until it's ready to go out and have the effect that I know that it's gonna have, and do the things it had to do. And like a kid, you're not the owner of the kid. You're just there to help him fly away. And it's the
yeah,
same that I'm doing with this. I have been nurturing on my cave this information until it's the moment that I can give it away to everyone to play with me. And I think I'm reaching that point. That's the reason that we are right now talking, and I think that I need to play with more people right now. And it's very fun. This is very, very fun.
It is. It is. And
And
I think that, I mean, just sort of go what you were describing earlier about working with the autistic child or children and explaining um, social interaction via those shapes, via these this like mechanism for understanding. And I think that because it's a playful tool, it's going to be more effective because people are open to fun, they're open to learning, they're open to those types of interactive modalities, and that you have this is pretty amazing. I mean, that's like the it's like that brilliance where it's like this has just been sitting here the whole time and no one ever saw it, you know. And there's such a significant profound significance to that. So when you ask
because
me,
it's so simple that nobody is looking there. That's the
it's
reason.
crazy. It's crazy. So I guess because when you asked me to do this, you asked like you were saying that you wanted to reach out to people. So if you wanted people to be able to get a hold of you or to be able to interact with you or check out your things, like what type of help would you need to facilitate the changes in the world with this that you want to make, and how would people go about like finding you to do that? And but you have YouTube.
Yeah, I have YouTube, but I don't even have my videos on YouTube. Okay, I have like I only published like I think 3 or 4 videos in almost 10 years,
Yeah, they were
and
like
that's
a
all.
few years old
And,
when you sent me.
yeah, and 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 I did that. You know why I did that? Because I needed proof.
Hmm.
That was all the reason. I needed proof for this time when I'm reaching out and to people know that I have been working with this for a long time now, and that was all my intention. And actually, in one of the videos, I talk about this creating a team of people to make research and develop technology, and the other one is explaining this. Well, it's exposing this model, um, and the other one is an introduction of a conference that I give a lecture. The conference is 2 day. Isn't always divided in 2 days? It's almost 8 hours long and talks about everything from the beginning to the end, like synthesized, very, very synthesized. And it's like telling a story because I found out that way that to communicate it. At first, nobody understood a word that I was saying like 10 years ago. They looked me like you're crazy. Like what?
Who's this guy in his funny box? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
what is he doing?
yeah. And before that, I was in another dimension, really, like not even myself understand. Not even I understand myself, and because I was connected to this other dimension, and I was disconnected from this dimension, the normal dimension for everyone. So it took me some time to start to adapt my speech and the way I was expressing things. And I found out certain things about the way that I start to work with the way I express myself, like in a dialectic, think, like Socrates,
Yeah,
make asking people questions, and by
making that.
their answer I was like twisting my words and my speech until I found out like these things. Okay, how can I transform my information to fit that other geometry, and I found out that way. So now I made a experiment like a year ago, and I gave a lecture, and I invited people that I I asked people that know me and had gone to my lecture, and I told them, okay, this is gonna be free, but you have to invite people that don't have any context about science, about geometry, about nothing. If it is a people that it's related only to religion or like that, right? So, and also when I was arriving to the place where the conference took place, I invited people, homeless people that were around there, and 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 I love it because everyone understood, and
Nice.
it was my proof that I found a way of how to adapt this complex information and tell it to everyone of any age, of any um, conception of the universe, to understand that this is real, this is logical, and you can understand it by your own means. Not because I'm telling you that this is like this and that this, because I'm I'm showing you step by step the pieces of the puzzle,
Right.
and then psh, your mind opens and you can see it for yourself. Not because I'm telling you to see it.
No, but you can see it.
Hey, I want to buy you a present for this.
A chainsaw?
Or a book. Something really nice.
How's that for a slice of fried gold?
For all of us here at News Center 4, I'm Ron Burgundy. You stay classy, San Diego.